station, serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He is hit! He stumbles! He's down!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
It sounds and feels like a happy hour Friday. Today it is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Edding producing today's show. Yes, the happy hour Friday show always has a little bit of a different feel. And we hope you're feeling pretty good out there. What's going on? I know that there was a panic button hit last night for many of the people who watched the 76ers last night in that lifeless effort. You know, sometimes South Beach can get the better of you, especially when a trip to Disney World, now they're not going to Orlando, they'll play the Magic, is next on the schedule. You know, you go to Miami to party, you go to Orlando to hang out with your family. The Sixers, I think, partied knowing that their family is coming to town tonight with a chance to clinch the number one seed. You know, you could look at that game in a variety of ways, and I think we should, because the mindset was, man, this team got wiped up by a decent opponent in the Miami Heat. You know, I think the overall game last night, if you just said, give me your opinion on the game, I thought they played like crap. Does them playing like crap mean that they will perpetually play like crap? Obviously not. But the point that I would look at is there's two ways to look at this thing. One, if the Sixers came out like gangbusters last night and won that game and they clinched, the narrative today is, man, they don't play a playoff game for almost 10 days. You know, are they going to be able to play like they did in Miami, wiping up the Heat 10 days from now? This layoff is going to be a problem. But they play poorly, and now the narrative is this is what they're going to look like in 9 days. Every day is a different day, and every game is a different game. That's sports. If you came out like gangbusters last night, doesn't mean you're going to come out like gangbusters tonight. If you played poorly last night, doesn't mean you're going to play poorly tonight. If you played great last night, doesn't mean when the playoffs start, you're all of a sudden going to be playing well. And that's the beauty of sports. We always want to try to find who's the hot team? Who's going in as the team who's won 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10? It makes you feel better, but it doesn't mean anything. A hill of beans is what they say. And the Sixers last night looked like a team that knew, hey, we still have 2 opportunities to do this at our home building. I'll take the night off. 609-403-0973 is the text board. 609-403-0973. Text board always open. If you're watching the show live in the video stream, hit us up over there. I know a lot of people who watched that game last night and said, well, the Heat are a good team. Don't want to play the Heat. You can't beat the Heat. And maybe you can. Hey, maybe I'm way off my rocker here. But that Joel Embiid that I saw last night looked like a Joel Embiid that really probably shouldn't have tried to go last night. Ben Simmons, terrible game. You can't sugarcoat that game. Ben Simmons played horribly. Overall, they had 3 double-digit scores, and none of them were Nate Embiid. That's not a recipe for a Sixer victory against anybody, let alone the Miami Heat, playing, which, by the way, for seeding. You know, the Miami Heat have a lot to play for in that game last night. Sixers, you might say, well, so did they. We know the Sixers are in a different spot. They have a 1-game lead on the Nets, which is really 2 because they own the tiebreaker with 2 games left to go. Philly would have to lose their last 2 games against the Orlando Magic. Possible, I guess. Orlando's 21-49. They've lost 5 games in a row. So I guess all of a sudden the doomsday Sixer fan believes that the Magic are going to get hot and go on a 2-game road winning streak here to close out the season. I've seen some stranger things. I don't think this is it. But what message did the Heat send the Sixers last night? What was the message that the Heat sent the Sixers last night? Jimmy Butler, I'm not letting you clinch on my home court. You're going to have to do this someplace else. And the Heat with that win, they put themselves 4th straight win, 8 out of 10. They're in the 5 spot. And the Heat now have that, we talk about how mentally you'll look going into the playoffs. The Heat now have the mental edge over Philadelphia, don't they? They just beat them handily on their home court. I mean, that was about as handily as you can get. The way they won that game last night was about as handily as you could beat a number 1 seed. So I think there's a couple messages that come from the game last night. One, if the Sixers won that game coming out like gangbusters, you would say, man, how do they bottle that up and store it and break glass when needed for 10 days from now when they open up the playoffs? But they played poorly, and all of a sudden it's, I want them to look like, I don't want them to look like that in 8 and 9 days. Guess what? They're not going to. And if they do, they deserve to get knocked out of the playoffs. If anything we have learned from this Sixers team throughout the course of this season is they're a lot different team with and without certain guys. And I think you could chalk up last night's game to essentially playing without Joel Embiid, because he did not seem to be all that excited about being out there last night. But there's a couple takeaways from that game. The way that the Miami Heat defended the Sixers last night, they defended them. They had the zone, and the zone is one way to kind of neutralize and try to take away what Joel Embiid does, right? We've seen a lot of teams try to zone the Sixers up in the past, and they've had problem with it. And we used to blame Brett Brown that he can't figure out how to coach against a zone. Well, Doc Rivers didn't do a great job of it last night. You know why? NBA teams don't see zones very often. They don't practice against them very often. There's barely any practice time going on right now. So it's not something that your team, typically the first time you see it, comes out and looks really crisp against. Now, you don't play the Miami Heat every single night of the week. So if the Miami Heat decide, hey, we're going to throw a little zone tonight, the Sixers probably didn't practice at all getting ready for the Miami Heat, except for a little walkthrough at the beginning. So that's why on a regular season random night, when you play a 1-game situation, you're not really prepared like you are in a playoff series about the way a team is going to change their defensive mentality up against you. So that's why I see a lot of people talking about, hey, the zone. Yeah, the zone was a problem last night. It was a big problem, by the way. Why? Because the Sixers, who depend a lot on their ability to get good looks and shoot threes, well, you're not hitting those threes last night, and that's a problem. Look, the Sixers are a team that we talked about the other day. They really have a 3-prong offense. It's Joel Embiid in the paint. It's Seth Curry, Danny Green, and Tobias Harris shooting 40% from 3. They have the wing threes. They have the corner 3. All predicated on Ben Simmons getting deep into the paint. And then they have Ben Simmons in the open court. Those are the 3 prongs of the Sixers offense. Joel Embiid, who can stop me? Nobody. All right, we're going to zone you up. Okay, then the Sixers go to phase 2. Danny Green hit 3 of 5 threes last night. Steph Curry hit 2 of 4. So those two guys actually shot it pretty well. But the problem was not enough. The Sixers hit 75%, 28%, 75%, 28% of their threes last night. Nobody else. Tobias, 0 for 4. Joel got a little frustrated, shot a couple threes. Maxey didn't connect. Korkmaz, 0 for 3. If you look at the way the minutes are kind of dispersed in that game, too, it didn't seem like, I know the Sixers were kind of out of that game in the first quarter. My God, they're down 38-22. They lost the second quarter. They lost the third quarter. They were kind of out of that game. And I think the energy just wasn't there. Then they tried to match the energy in the second quarter, third quarter. They played much better, but they just couldn't get shots to fall. So you chalk that kind of game up to the Heat have more to play for. And I think the Sixers, in the back of their mind, they kind of know, hey, we've got Orlando twice at home. Let's take care of business on our home court. I'm not saying they went through the motions last night, but they kind of went through the motions last night. But what it does is it sets up an interesting last couple days in the Eastern Conference here. Because now Atlanta is a half game up over Miami for the 4th seed. That's going to be an interesting series because right now Atlanta has home court advantage in the East. Miami, who is the 5 seed, would be on the road in that series. They are tied with the Knicks, who is the 6th seed. In this scenario, it would be Philadelphia the 1, Philadelphia playing either Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, or Washington. Here's something about Washington, too. Everybody keeps talking about Washington and how good they've been, and they have been. But as good as they've been, Washington has played really good basketball, been really hot, and they have not been able to get out of the 10 spot. Just keep that in mind. They are still number 10 in the Eastern Conference, even with as good as they've played. So that is Philadelphia's likely first opponent. If they are the 1 seed, they would play Boston, Charlotte, Indy, or Washington, one of those 4 teams. Brooklyn would play one of those 4 teams. So for the sake of this conversation, let's say it falls out into place. Philly would play Charlotte, Brooklyn would play Boston, Milwaukee would play New York, Atlanta would play Miami. If anything changes, I think it would possibly be in the 4 or 5 spot. But I think you will see Philadelphia 1, Brooklyn 2, Milwaukee 3. Now, let's try to map out what could happen over the last 2 days here. We have tonight, Saturday, and Sunday. Obviously, no one's going to play 3 days in a row. So everybody's got either 1 or 2 games left. For Atlanta, they've got 1 game left on Sunday. So they are off tonight, and they are off tomorrow. They play Houston on Sunday. So Atlanta, I would think, is going to get a win. They play Houston. If they win that game, they will be the 4. So let's anticipate Atlanta beating Houston, who's the worst team in basketball. They've lost 7 in a row. Let's assume Atlanta wins that game. Miami's interesting here. So Miami, they have 1 game left. Miami has 1 game left. It's a tough one, though. They actually 2 games left. They play Milwaukee on the road, and they play Detroit. Well, I don't think Milwaukee really has – what does Milwaukee still have to play for? Are they still in play for the 2 seed? They're a game back. Right. So Milwaukee, Miami's got Milwaukee and Detroit. So let's say they go 1-1 in those 2 games. That's interesting because the game Miami has to go to Milwaukee, and then they've got to go to Detroit. They'll beat Detroit. But if they go 1-1, let's see what the Knicks have still to come. The Knicks still play. New York is playing Saturday and Sunday, both games at 1 o'clock, by the way. So the Knicks play Charlotte and Boston. Charlotte and Boston, who of course are 7 and 8. So you can make that New York would win both of those games. If they do, under that scenario, if Atlanta wins their game, they're the 4. If Miami goes 1-1, they lose to Milwaukee, they beat Detroit, and New York wins both, New York would be the 5, and Miami would be the 6. Now, let's take a look at this little nugget. I just said they play Boston and Charlotte. Well, those two teams are 7 and 8. I don't think that will be affected because Boston's 2 games up on Charlotte. So I think Boston will be the play-in game 7. The only reason that matters is because Charlotte is now the road team in the 7-8 game. Indiana will play Washington. Now, those could flip because Washington is 1 back of Indiana. Now, Indiana and Charlotte could flip too, by the way. Those two teams are tied 8 and 9. So you got a lot of things that could change in the last 3 days here. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the games, they all have some matter. They're all kind of still, up in the air. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. All right, we're just getting started. Mike McGarry at 2:40 today. We'll get his thoughts on that Sixer loss last night. Does it actually have more meaning? And what's the message the Heat sent? McGarry from the press of Atlantic City at 2:40. Paul Hudrick goes inside the Sixers today at 3:20. DiCecco, rookie camp today. Oh, the Eagle rookies are on the field. It's like Christmas Day. Do you remember? Good ones today. Real good ones. Stick around. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, and the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. All right, back with more Sports Bash.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Mega Millions is giving you over 430 million reasons to take a chance. That's a whole lot of millions. In Jersey, one mega chance could be all it takes. So take a chance on Mega Millions because anything can happen in Jersey.
221 Sports Bash, Mike McGarry coming up in 20 minutes from now here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll spin around the league and check in on the NBA playoffs, which I'm actually very excited for. I am ready to go. I am excited to see how these things all play out because it's been a lot of bad basketball for, my God, most of the season. Guys sitting out all the time, not playing, disinterested, games that are just like constantly grouped on top of each other. You know, the Sixers are playing 5 games in 7 nights. What kind of game? I mean, do you anticipate that we're going to get a good quality game when you've played 5 in 7 nights? No. So this is one of those, hey, I get you. I'm giving you the hat tip. I'm granting you this lousy brand of basketball, but clean up your act. We get to these playoffs. You owe me, man. You owe me big time. And next year, I want a different brand of basketball. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Says, Mike, I do have to piggyback off what that text the other day about that gentleman who appreciates listening to you. We take it for granted to hear you every day. Just keep up the good work, and it's much appreciated to listen to you every day and escape this crazy world and all the hate. Thanks, from Huddy. Huddy, I appreciate you saying that because that is what I'm hoping for. I am hoping that I got miserable basketball all year long, but I don't want to take for granted how good the basketball can be because like you, I'm not great at this every single day. I try hard. Some days I'm good. Some days I'm not. I'm just glad that you're a part of it, and I appreciate you listening every day. But I also appreciate that this brand of basketball has been doctored because of the exact same thing that you said, the crazy world we've lived in the last year. You know, I just got an email from some person I've never met before in my life, but I get emails from nonstop. And it said that I can now walk around my building without a mask if I so choose. Just think about the world we've lived in, that I can make that decision finally after over a year and a half. It's like a good feeling, but it's kind of weird all wrapped into one that we've actually been a part of this. It's like you ever go to like Wikipedia and go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole and you're like looking back at certain things and like why this happened in this random year. You're like, why did they play their home games here? Oh, they had asbestos in their building. That happened to me when I was in West Virginia. The basketball team couldn't play any home games for 1 year in the Mountaineer Coliseum because the building had asbestos in it. So they had to play all their home games like in Charleston, West Virginia. They played a couple games in Fairmont, West Virginia. The girls, the women's basketball team was playing at Morgantown High School. And you're like, what happened that was so random that you couldn't play any home games? Well, you had asbestos in the building. Random. What happened when people look back at Wikipedia 25 years from now? Why were the Blue Jays playing in Dunedin? Well, they were not allowed in their country because of this random thing. But, Huddy, to get that text message is another very good indication of that there are good people out there and that they do understand that things are a little crazy and kooky right now. And I'm just doing the best I can to keep my sanity every single day. With the allergy problem that I've been going with right now, which, by the way, I'm hoping to get fixed here shortly. There was a nice listener who was listening to me, and he reached out. I have contacted him, and I am hoping that this gentleman who specializes in allergies can help me out, and I will give you details if that is the case. But, you know, this week has been one of the roughest weeks that I can literally say that I've ever had in terms of these allergies. I've never dealt with something like this before, to the point that I don't know what day's up, what day's down, what upside down, who's backwards, what's going on. And for some ability, for the 4 hours that I'm here, I can keep some sort of not sanity's not even the right word. Like, I feel like for these 4 hours, I'm having an outer body experience of consciousness Because after I get off the air and before, I almost feel like I'm not conscious of what's going on. Like, it's such an odd feeling. Like, you're doing certain things, and it's like, I know that I'm doing this, and I can't stop because I am such in a fog right now that I can't prevent it. But for these 4 hours, it's almost like you have to suck it up and just do it, you know? Like, I got asked a question the other day from somebody, and I literally were like, I have no idea what you just asked me. I think I'm just going to like it's like this episode of Seinfeld when Elaine went to the Dixieland Deli and they played the music really loud in her ears, and then she asked when who was the dentist, and he was asking her out on the date, and she couldn't hear what he was saying, so she just was like, she thought, he was asking if she wanted some peanuts, and she was like, nah. Meanwhile, he was saying, hey, would you like to come out with me? Like, that's how I felt all week long, where you legitimately were just like answering questions in a way that you think like you're just like, okay, yeah, sure, okay, but for 4 hours, like that text message said, you just kind of have a little bit of a release from everything, and it's like, all right, as soon as I finish this off, I will go back to being a kooky nut for these couple days. Now, I hope to get that fixed here soon. Now, Josh, if you've noticed, I have been a little off this week. I have been very off this week. But that being said, I still hope, but I'm still looking forward to these NBA playoffs.
You're similar to me in one aspect. We are both machines in a way when it comes to our work. So, like, when I've had my health problems in the past, I just do it. Like, there's no and if or but. You just do the job, and then when the job is done, you just go back to being like, a rough mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like every day that I've got
switch.
I've got right. It's like, okay, it's 4 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's time to go. I gotta go.
Right.
There's nothing else I can really. You just can't. It's like there's no other answer. You just got to get it done.
Right. That's how you and I function. We just say there's a job that has to get done. We get it done.
Jalen's watching on YouTube. This is the Mike Gill flu game. This has been the Mike Gill flu game
week.
all week long. Yeah. All right. Let's go through some of the comments. My man Gene Allen is watching. Gene's one of my favorite human beings out there. And he says, Mike, they didn't compete. That's what's disturbing. It's disturbing that they didn't compete last night. Yes. Do I think that is them not competing 10 days from now? No. I don't need to tell Gene Allen about what coaching a basketball team's like. My man's probably the best motivator and head coach motivation-wise in the entire state. But and I know, Gene, that you might play, I don't want to slight anybody, but, there's a couple schools that just aren't basketball schools, and your team probably goes in with a little different focus than when they play St. Augustine at the Battle by the Bay on Friday night. And you might say, well, they're playing the Miami Heat. The Sixers are playing the Orlando Magic, and the Sixers know that. Just like your kids know, on Friday night I'm playing Buna, and on Sunday I might be playing Pleasantville. There's a different feel playing Pleasantville in the Battle by the Bay in front of a huge crowd than there is playing in front of 15 people and watching Atlantic City play Buna. Now, the Miami Heat are playing for a home game in the playoffs. They have a lot more at hand. The not competing is fair to say, but they didn't compete on Thursday night. That doesn't mean they're not going to compete come playoff time. And guess what? If they do, Gene, I'll be the first one out here to rip them. Hey, look, you can take a broad approach to everything, but you can also compartmentalize day by day. That's what I do. I compartmentalize day by day. I don't say this is who you are all the time. If you give me a lousy effort, you're going to get the wrath if I have the energy to do so. But I could say you are right. They didn't compete last night. It's disturbing, but that's not a trend. Their trend is not of a team that does not compete. In fact, if anything, that's who they are. What are the Sixers? They're not the Brooklyn Nets. They're not flashy. They're not the Milwaukee Bucks. Who are the Sixers? They're a team that competes. They're a team that fights you. They're a team that defends. That's who the Sixers are, which is different from the other teams. Is it a recipe for a championship? That I can't answer. We are going to get the first look at the big three playing together tomorrow. They're playing the Chicago Bulls. The Brooklyn Nets are playing the Bulls tomorrow. And we're going to get a first chance to look at them. Michael's checking in and says, unfortunately, no one's going to beat a healthy Nets team. That's the mentality of many, Michael. A lot of people think this team can just put their shoes on differently than everybody else. A lot of people think that they can just wake up in the morning and strap on those shoes and tie them just a little tighter than everybody else can. You know why? We live in a star-driven society. It's the only thing the casual fan understands. Stars win, and they have three, and that makes them better. That's why everybody believes in the Nets. Miami Heat had the three best players, Bosh, Wade, LeBron. They didn't win their first year together, and they play a full 82-game season together, and they still weren't ready to play together come playoff time. They kind of slopped their way through those playoffs and then ended up losing to the Dallas Mavericks in the finals that first season. Hey, the Lakers tried to put a super team together later on in their career. Little different, I will admit, but they went and got Gary Payton, Karl Malone, and they put that team together. And everybody said, the Lakers are winning this thing. Look what they got. They got Payton, and man, I get it. Those players were a little past their prime, but they got knocked out in the first round, I think, if memory serves. So it's easy, Michael, for all the people out there to just assume the Nets. We haven't seen the Nets. We don't know anything about the Nets. All we know about the Nets is they have three-star players, and we live in a star-driven society, and the NBA is the biggest of star-driven leagues. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, Mike McGarry is going to check in. We'll get his thoughts on, should we be concerned about these Sixers' efforts? Should we see people? See, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. My nose just like totally filled up here. Should we take that message from the Heat? Sports Bash, McGarry on the other side. That and more here on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, here we go on a Friday. Mike McGarry's here as we take a look at what happened last night and what it means going forward. We got 2 games left for most teams. Atlanta has 1. Phillies got 2. Eastern Conference still wide open, not decided. But the Sixers did not look good last night, Mike McGarry, from the press of Atlantic City. And we've got people who are now hitting the panic button like, oh, my God, they didn't compete. They didn't look good. Is it a Thursday night in Miami, or is this a concern moving forward?
You know, I still hold to my a position that I adopted about a month ago where I said nothing that happens in the Sixers regular season matters until the playoffs. To me, this just raises another question that will be answered in the playoffs. Is this their lackluster play, quite frankly, last night and in Indiana the night before, a sign of poor things to come, or will they flip a switch when the playoffs start and we'll get a different look? We'll find out. But right now, I'm not going to say that because the Sixers have been lackluster and haven't played well down the stretch, it means playoff doom. It doesn't bode well, but I just think to teams, they don't think of it like fans do and the media do. I don't think the Sixers put the importance on last night's game that, quite frankly, their fans and the media did.
If they win the game last night, Mike, and they blow the Heat out and they look great, aren't we saying today, man, they don't play in the playoffs for another 12 to 9 days? Like, they can't. If you win big, they don't have a game in the playoffs for a while. Can you, that whole like, well, do you want the time off? Well, now you're playing your best basketball. So it's almost like that game last night. It's bad. I get it. It looks bad. But if they win the game, now you're talking about something different as to you're always finding reasons why your favorite team can't do what you want them to do.
Or you're finding reasons why your favorite team might be successful. And like you said, if they had beaten the Heat by 25 last night, I don't think that guarantees playoff success. I think this has just been an extremely weird NBA season. And watching a lot of NBA games, it just appears to me that not a lot of teams, if anybody, is playing defense in the league. There's been, I think we've had, since the All-Star break, the most 20-point blowouts since 1967-68 post that All-Star break. I just don't think you can take anything from this regular season. I think it really is a clean slate once the playoffs begin, and then you can make your judgments. And I think the Sixers are a team that they've answered regular season's questions. The questions surrounding the Sixers, can Ben Simmons score in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? Can Embiid stay healthy for a playoff run? Matisse Thybulle, will his defense make him better in the playoffs, or will his offensive liabilities be a negative in the playoffs? Was George Hill enough at the trading deadline? Those are questions that are going to be answered in the playoffs. Add to that, does how the Sixers played the last month of the season going to matter when the playoffs start? I'll tell you what, listening to Doc Rivers on the Zoom last night, he's brutally honest. He gets out there and says, we stunk. We didn't have any effort. Our offense stunk. Our defense stunk. We didn't play with any passion. And then, you say, does it have any long-term effect? And he seems to say no. So I would agree. I think when the playoffs start, it's a completely brand new season.
Right. Well, if we've learned anything about, the evolution of everything in sports, is that one night doesn't carry over to the next. You might lose by 48 one night and win the next. I mean, there is no rhyme or reason in professional sports. And a lot of that, Mike, is because the playing field has become so even all the way across.
Well, I think, too, the Sixers know, the bottom line is the Sixers know that they're going to be the number 1 seed in the East, right? They know even if they lost last night, they lost in Indiana, they know eventually they're going to win a game. They got Orlando twice. They're going to win one of these 2 games. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the East. They know that. I don't know why it is, but to us and to fans, we care about seeding. We're looking at it saying, hey, if you can get the Miami Heat on the other side of the bracket, that's great. But pro teams in every sport don't care about seeding. They don't seem to care about home court advantage.
The Sixers care about playing Miami in round. Like, should they have tried to knock Miami further back last night?
Common sense to us says, yeah, if I can get the Heat out of our bracket and put them on the other side with Milwaukee and Brooklyn, yeah. But for some reason, that's not the way NBA teams think. And that's what makes them professional athletes. Joel Embiid does not think that the Sixers are going to lose to Miami Heat. Joel Embiid doesn't care who the Sixers play in round 2. He thinks he's going to go out and get 40 points and 25 rebounds. That's what makes him a pro athlete. Ben Simmons doesn't think the Sixers are going to lose to Miami Heat in the second round. He thinks he's going to have a triple-double every night. So that's why they're professional athletes. They're supremely confident in their ability to get it done, and they don't care who they play.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City right now here on the Sports Bash. All right, so you watched the game last night and see what Miami did. Is that a precursor of what's to come for this team? A lot of zone. Hey, we can't stop Joel Embiid, so this is our way to try to stop him. You try to figure out, and that kind of takes Ben Simmons out of what he likes to do. Get penetration, a lot of kickouts, wide open threes. That's been a recipe for success. You think the Sixers will see a lot more zone based on, hey, we got a nice look at what Joel Embiid can and can't do against that zone?
Absolutely. I think especially teams that can't match up with Joel Embiid, that don't have a big guy that can match up with him, which Miami has Bam Adebayo, but still, Embiid will overwhelm that Miami front line. Embiid will overwhelm that Brooklyn Nets front line. If you play a zone against the Nets, against the Sixers, rather, not only do you take Ben Simmons out of it, you take Tybalt out of it. You make life more difficult for them there. So I think, judging by the last week of the season, the NBA is a copycat league. You will see teams playing zone against the Sixers in the postseason. Now, the surest way to get out of the zone, and the one thing Doc Rivers said last night, was because the Sixers' defense was so bad and because Miami was scoring with such ease down the other end of the court, they were able to get back and set up that zone. So if the Sixers' defensive intensity increases in the playoffs, and the Sixers are a good defensive team, and they get some stops and they get some runouts and some fast breaks, then the other team can't settle in that zone down the other end of the court, and it makes it less effective. So, but I think you will see teams playing zone against the Sixers in the playoffs.
So, Mike, whenever an NBA team seems to see a zone, they seem to be like when a fifth grade team scrimmages the eighth grade team and gets pressed. They have no idea what to do. It's like this is the first time we've ever seen them press.
Right.
Why are NBA teams so slow and so poor at recognizing zones and what to do when they play them? A lot of times that one night in the regular season, we don't know what to do, and they look terrible. Why is that?
I think it's exactly what you just said. I think they don't see it on a regular basis, and you even seeing that drift over to the college game. You see Syracuse every year with their matchup zone come into the NCAA tournament at 16-11. Next thing you know, everybody's questioning why they're in the tournament. Next thing, they're in the Sweet 16 because teams don't see a zone. The NBA is such a pick and roll league. It's such a isolation type league that when a team throws a zone up there, it takes a team a few minutes or a quarter or so to get its legs under them. Now, the zone is never going to stop great shooting, which is what every NBA team has to some degree. And also, the one caveat about the zone in a postseason is, okay, it works on a Tuesday night in Miami, but if the Sixers came back in game 2, would the Sixers adjust to it having seen it more? You would take that away. So the question I would have is how effective would the zone be over the course of a 7-game series? Because I do believe, like you said, the one reason is effective is because NBA teams rarely see it.
Right. And Mike, they also rarely practice, especially this year.
Right.
So it's not like you can say, hey, let's spend an hour and a half on Miami zone because we think we're going to see that. They did not have a chance to prepare for Miami or their zone.
Exactly. So now you're talking, if this was game 1 between game 2, today you got 2 hours of practice. You put in 3 or 4 quick hitters to defend again, to operate against the zone, get some shots against the zone, and you go in game 2 and you rip it up, and there you go. I mean, that's what the playoffs is. But I do think the Sixers will see it at least at times because it has been effective, and it does, as you mentioned, take Simmons out of the game. It takes Tybalt out of the game to a certain element, and it also slows down Embiid a little bit.
All right. Real quick, Mike, we got 4, 5, 6. All right. The Knicks are the 6th. They got Boston and Charlotte. How's that go?
1-1.
1-1. All right. Miami plays at Milwaukee, at Detroit.
2-0.
They're winning that game at Milwaukee.
Yes.
And Atlanta
I like the way Miami's playing right now.
All right. So, and Atlanta plays Houston. So they're winning that.
Atlanta beats Houston, correct.
All right. So Atlanta will be 4, Miami will be 5, and New York
the Knicks will be 6. Correct.
All right. That's
how I looked at it.
So that game ended up being, as a fan, the way we view, ended up having importance for the Sixers.
Exactly. And look, would you rather play? I think the Sixers go past either the Hawks or the Knicks in 5 games. Sixers Heat, I think the Sixers win that series, but that series is 6 games, maybe 7, and every game's a grind.
Yeah, and now are you concerned, if you're a Sixer fan, about any of the 4 play-ins? Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, Washington.
I think I'm not concerned about any of the 4. I think Washington with Westbrook maybe gets a game, but I just think the other 4 are non-issue. The other 3 are a non-issue.
All
Too
right,
much Embiid.
Too much Embiid. Well, that's what we thought. Last night, he looked like he should not have been out there.
Well, I think since the All-Star break, he has kind of dialed it back. And again, when the playoffs come, you're going to see the Joel Embiid that I think you saw in the first quarter of the season, the one that was playing as well as anybody in the league. I think you're going to see those guys. I think you're going to see defensive intensity back. I think you're going to see a completely different Sixers team. But I also think you're going to see a completely different team in some of the opponents they're playing. Especially, let's not forget, the Miami Heat were in the NBA Finals last year. Jimmy Butler. Bam Adebayo, pretty good.
No, and it's funny though, because Mike, throughout the course of this year, it was they just don't have, like, there's a lot of people thought they made the finals because of the bubble situation. Like, would they have one road series, playing in full buildings, having to be the road team along the way like they did last year? So a lot of people kind of looked at it and said, it was a little wonky that they made the finals. And then this year, you wanted to keep they went to the finals last year, and then it's like, they're 500. Maybe they're just not that good.
Right, but I think you got to remember that when the NBA Finals ended in October, you look what the Lakers have done on the other side. They've also been a bit sluggish, and I also just like the Heat's culture. Eric Spoelstra, great coach. The Pat Riley culture down there, all in, winning, a winning organization. I mean, I just think, if you could have avoided them and you had them on the other side, I think it would have been a big advantage. But right now I think you're going to end up with Sixers Heat in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And again, that's an interesting series.
Well, right. And you would have Sixers Heat and Bucks Nets. Now, the Nets were going to get their first look at the 3 guys playing together tomorrow. They will play tomorrow against the Bulls. Are you in the camp that says, doesn't matter, too good, or do they need more? Do they need more time to have you buy in?
I'm in the camp. Doesn't matter. I don't care if they haven't played. I think I read today they played 7 games and 137 minutes this season heading into tomorrow. I don't care. To me, those 3 guys are basketball geniuses. It's like throwing, Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, and Thomas Edison in a room and tell them you got to solve this problem. You're going to get the answer. All right. You throw Harden, Durant, and Irving in a room, you're going to be pretty good.
Well, I mean, you remember, Bosh, LeBron, and Wade did not win the title their first year, and they played the whole season together.
I just think the firepower that this group has if a game's close in the fourth quarter, which it will be, I don't know how you stop those 3 guys.
It's definitely, and I was right before you came on, Mike. I talk about we live in the society that is star driven, and there is no more star driven league than the NBA. So it's easy to just say, all right, they're going to win it. But man, are they going to get a stop late?
They're going to get enough stops. I think they're going to get enough stops. That's the question. I just think they have so much firepower that even if their defense is lacking, which it will be, they are one of the worst defensive teams in the league, but I think that'll improve in the playoffs. I just don't know how you consistently stop those 3 guys in the last 4 minutes of a game, and I think they're going to score enough to win. As I said to somebody the other day, they put points on the scoreboard, not defensive stops, and that team will score more points than the other team.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. A lot of basketball stuff today. Check out his must-win articles, of course, at the Press of Atlantic City. His Phillies coverage. Odubel Herrera, is he the guy in center field? Check out that story now from Mike over at the Press of Atlantic City. What's on the high school docket this weekend?
Basically, some just Diamond Classic stuff, gearing up for the baseball. And as we count down about 2 weeks before we begin the state tournament, and it's really an exciting time because this is the first really full high school normal season we've had since the pandemic struck, and it's been nice, and the weather's getting nicer. So some great performances coming up in the next week or so as we wind down.
All right, a quick baseball stat, which has a local tie. Peter Gammons tweeted earlier, Mike Trout is having arguably the best season of his Hall of Fame career, and his 10.9 launch angle, it's the lowest of his career. And that one made my day, Mike McGarry.
Well, I mean, you heard Girardi talk the other day that maybe the offenses had to adjust, get away from the launch angle swing, the strikeouts, and concentrate more on putting the ball back in play. Maybe we're going to get back a little bit to the 80s, basically.
I would love to see it. Mike McGarry, feels like that went by really quick. Good to talk to you, man.
All right, we'll see you next week, Mike. Thanks.
Mike will be back Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I had so many people come up to me the other day like, you and McGarry mixing it up. This is great. Well, we'll do it again on Monday. And, yeah, we mix it up all right. We have had some battles in our social media page. He is at AC Press McGarry. Follow him on Twitter, and make sure you check out his must-win column in the Press of Atlantic City. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We are live on a Friday, happy hour Friday. Pete Thompson tonight. We like to mix it up as well. What am I going to mix it up with on the other side? Well, speaking of that Mike Trout launch angle, how about the year that Mike Trout is having? You know, speaking of which, I thought about that when I saw the tweet. Mike Trout, his launch angle, it's the lowest of his career. And then I thought about Tom Brady. There's something about Tom Brady's year last year that I think is being undervalued, and it ties into the Eagles. And I will tie those all together next. Hour 2, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The free mobile app. Download wherever you get your apps in your app store, Google Play, Apple. Also, don't forget you can watch the show live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, 97.3 ESPN. So I was telling you before the break, my favorite stat of the day, Peter Gammons tweeted this out, that Mike Trout, who's having the best season of his career, arguably, his launch angle is the lowest of his career. And again, I've told you, I don't subscribe to one or another. All I'd say is I don't subscribe to it's the only way and that it's the only way to do it. Some guys hitting in that style works great for them, obviously. Other guys, it is ruining their ability to be a successful hitter. You see batting averages plummeting. You see strikeouts rising. It is no question one of those things where you do it for you, but it doesn't work for me. Mike Trout, I feel maybe because of, excuse me 1 second. I told you, I'm having a lot of issues with my allergies today. And I was like, thought I was about to got kind of snuck up there. But maybe because Mike Trout is from here, and it's almost like, how can the guy that represents your area be almost overlooked? And I'm not saying that people are overlooking Mike Trout, but it's, he's in Anaheim. We don't get to see him all that much. And then I don't want to say it's fatigue because he's from here and you had so much Mike Trout stuff kind of thrown at you his first couple of years in the league. And it's like, all right, I get it. Mike Trout's the best player in the game, which I don't think we hammer home enough that he is the best player in the game. And that being said, at 29 years old, he is smack dab in the prime of his career right now. But because he's been in the game for so long, we almost forget that, hey, that Mike Trout's pretty darn good. No, he's not pretty darn good. He's the best. And his numbers this year aren't only the best, they are eye-popping. Wait, what? How can Mike Trout's numbers be better? They are. Mike Trout, in a game that nobody can hit in, nobody can do anything but either hit a home run or strike out to be deemed successful, is hitting 355. Yeah, 355. I've talked a lot about guys like Tony Gwynn and Wally Joyner and Mark Grace, these sweet swinging lefties that just hit for high averages and not a lot of power. And I talk about, they probably don't have a job in today's game because what they do hit for a extremely high average, right? But not a lot of power. Not all that interested in you. Tony Gwynn, career high home runs, one season. He hit 17 homers. You know how many homers he hit in his career? 153. Mike Trout does that in about 2 seasons. But you know what Tony Gwynn did for a 4-year stretch? You ready for this? 358, 394, 368, 353, 372. The man had a career batting average of 338. The lowest batting average he ever had was 309. And nobody told him, hey, you're doing it wrong. Right? Nobody said, hey, Tony Gwynn, you're doing it wrong. So I contend what is being taught to some people, it's not wrong. It's just different. But the problem is we've almost ostracized the Tony Gwynns of the world. Hey, if you're hitting like this, we don't want you. Tony Gwynn can play on my team all day, every day. In fact, I'll take the 1994 version, please. When he hit 394, he was on base 45% of the time and even hit 12 dongs. I'll take the 1997 version, please, who blasted out 220 hits. He hit 372 and also hit 17 home runs. That's the guy that I'll take. Mike Trout, on the other hand, who's having the best season ever for him so far, 355. He's on base 47% of the time. 47%. It's better than Tony Gwynn. His slugging percentage is 673, excuse me. It's the best of his career. His OPS is by far the best of his career. And he's doing all this with the lowest launch angle of his career. So I'm not saying that launch angle doesn't work, launch angle, no. I'm saying Mike Trout didn't like where his batting average was going. Mike Trout didn't like the results he was getting, so he made some adjustments. And what he's adjusted is his swing a little bit. And he's gone from a 291, he was 281 last year, the two lowest batting averages of his career. And he decided to make a little bit of an adjustment, make a little bit of a change, and now he's hitting 355. Voila. Not good, great. Oh, and by the way, in 32 games, he has 8 home runs. He's hitting a home run just about every 4 games. Pretty unbelievable. So I saw that stat today with Mike Trout, and I thought to myself, man, we just don't appreciate Mike Trout all that much. Maybe because it's a little, I don't think fatigue is the right word, but it's more almost like that whole feeling of just like content, or you get complacent with the fact that I just know this guy's great. You don't need to keep telling me he's great. I know it already. And then I thought about Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, they were having a conversation on Greeny this morning. And they were talking about the Belichick Brady. They play in week 4. And the whole, was it Bill? Was it Brady? Was it the two of them? And I thought about this. I used to really think it was a lot of Belichick. And who was responsible for the Patriots' way? And I think they both are to an extent. Like, Belichick sets the culture. And I think Brady fit into the culture. He didn't fight it, he fit it. But think about this. Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, a team that was 7-9. And Tom Brady, let's be honest, he didn't have a Tom Brady season, right? Tom Brady wasn't first in line for an MVP award. In years past, Tom Brady's been the best. Tom Brady has been a 14-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 3-time league MVP. He has been the best. He wasn't last year. That certainly wasn't the best Tom Brady that we ever saw. I mean, he still had 40 touchdowns and only 12 interceptions and threw for 4,600 yards. But I think we all realized we weren't watching the same Tom Brady. And yet, at 43 years old, Tom Brady threw for 40 touchdowns and had 12 interceptions and took a team that won 7 games and brought them to another Super Bowl. That's unbelievable. That, I don't think, is talked about enough about Brady in this season that we just had, because we always kind of coupled Brady in with the Patriots. You know, Tom Brady threw for 4,600 yards. He only threw for more yards once in New England. He threw for 40 touchdowns. He only threw more touchdowns once in New England. I don't think we understand what kind of season at 43 years old Tom Brady had last year. Because we're kind of like, Tom Brady, he was not the same. He didn't look the same. He threw 40 touchdowns last year. He only threw more than 40 once when he threw 50 in 2007. He only threw more than 4,600 yards once when he threw 4,800 in 2007. In 2007, he was the MVP of the league, one of his three. And in 2020, you can make a strong argument that that was the second best year that Tom Brady ever had. And here all of us are thinking, Brady's at the end of the line. He's not the same. He's 43 years old. And you can make an argument that he was better than ever. So how do I tie that in to Jalen Hurts? Well, I'd say this. You look at a guy like Tom Brady, who many of us believed did not have his best season, when the numbers would say he did. But I think the perception from many of us was that this isn't the same Brady. He's not the same player. When au contraire, the numbers say, yes, I am. But this is my point, and I said it before about Russell Wilson. There's something about Tom Brady that sometimes we don't even think about Tom Brady's skill set. We think about just the Tom Brady effect. And the Tom Brady effect was able to, at 43 years old, not playing his best football in many of our eyes. And I think the numbers are a little different story than the eye test. The eye test told us he wasn't the same player. The numbers say you guys are all wrong because the numbers were better. But what Tom Brady meant to that Tampa Bay organization, that's the difference. And that's why Tampa Bay won a Super Bowl. They didn't win the Super Bowl because Tom Brady was MVP Tom Brady. They won the Super Bowl because Tom Brady was just simply Tom Brady. And I'm not saying the Eagles can win the Super Bowl because Jalen Hurts is simply Jalen Hurts. My point is, if Jalen Hurts is going to be successful in this league, it's going to be because he is a Tom Brady. Somebody who's better than his numbers even says they are. Someone who is able to change the culture of an organization. Brady learned the culture from being with Belichick and the Patriots, but he embraced it. And now it's like when you hire an assistant coach because he was on the bench with that coach, you want him to bring to you what that coach brings to the team that was successful. That's why you are Bobby Knight's assistant. You get an opportunity because we want you to do the things that you learned from Bobby Knight for our team. And that's how all these assistants get opportunities. Tom Brady essentially learned from Belichick, conformed to Belichick, and then taught it to another organization. That's essentially what he did. He taught it to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers conformed, much like Brady did, and they won a Super Bowl. Can Jalen Hurts do the same? That's how I think Hurts will be successful in this league. His leadership and as a culture setter, more so than his stats, which, as you just heard with Tom Brady, doesn't mean they have to be diminished. You can still put up big numbers, but still be known for something else, just like Tom Brady. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I think that the Sixers game last night has people in a tizzy. We're going to talk to Paul Hudrick about it. Should you have concern? Is it fair that people are a little concerned about what they saw last night? It's the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And don't forget, watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan open, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot online at mattblattnissan.com. I said that somebody texted in today a little while ago, said, Mike, what the hell are you talking about? You have to be more specific because I gave a disclaimer at the early part of the show that this has not been a very good week. And what am I talking about? I don't know what you're referring to. But if you want to be a little bit more clear, I will be sure to answer that question and do it the best that I can. All right, Paul Hudrick is here. There he is. All right, Paul. The Sixers lose last night, and the Twitter world, which is a Sixers cesspool, is in a tizzy because the Sixers lost on South Beach to the Heat. They didn't look like they were very interested in the game. Reason for concern, or they're playing the Magic tonight, baby.
If they take care of business tonight, what do you have to be concerned about? They're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. If they win one of the next two games, they are the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. So I think it's to have some concerns over some of the things you saw is fair. To me, the biggest, if you're going to look at like a concern, is if you play Miami, which is a big if, because they might not play Miami. If you play Miami, they did a very good job against Joel Embiid. They did a very good job of doubling him, finding their spots and all that. Granted, I don't think Joel Embiid looked remotely close to 100%. I thought he just didn't look good all night. I thought he looked really lethargic. I think maybe he shouldn't have been playing, quite frankly. I think I get it. He wanted to come back. He wanted to try to help his team close a deal. He knew that Miami would be up for the game, so he knew his team probably needed him. But I just don't think he was at 100%, and I'm not sure he should have played. And I thought the rest of the team, kind of like what you already talked about. What I tweeted, and I still think this, is Miami is trying to avoid being the 6th seed. So they have everything in the world to play for. The Sixers still have 2 chances against a terrible Orlando Magic team that is tanking to win, to lock up the number 1 seed. So I don't think it's this big. Like, I see a lot of the narrative of, the Miami Heat were sending a message. Miami Heat can't worry about sending a message. Miami Heat just have to win basketball games. They can't be worried about sending a message. They got to just win. And the Sixers aren't as desperate to win. And I thought that's what played out. I thought Miami was the much hungrier team. I thought they played much harder. And I thought that was it. I thought the Miami Heat were the better basketball team last night. Does that mean they're the better team overall? I'm not so sure.
Right. No doubt about that. They came out with more energy. The Sixers looked, and the Sixers matched the energy, but then they couldn't hit shots, and then they just kind of went back into the cave. And I guess the one question is, does it concern you to see the way the Sixers handled that zone last night? Like I said, look, they're not practicing against the zone. If you're playing Miami and you're in a series, you're now practicing and preparing for the different things they do. But seeing how they reacted to that zone, not only last night, and a lot of NBA teams, to be fair, struggle that first, they see a zone, they're like, what the heck is this? And they don't practice against it all that often, so they look terrible. But does it concern you that that's a path to victory for not only Miami, other teams to employ?
I would say a couple things. One would be they've handled the zone pretty well, actually, throughout this season, especially now that they've added more shooting to the starting lineup with Danny Green and Seth Curry. They've done a pretty darn good job when teams have zoned up on them, and they've exploited it and they've busted it for the most part. Recently, there's been some struggles, mostly with the bench unit, with the all bench unit, which, predictably, I hate to say, like, that all bench unit it struggles against man to man a lot of times. So I don't know if it's necessarily just the zone as much as it's just the offense in general, just really struggling with the second unit, not quite having it together. And the other thing I would say, Mike, is we just talked about the fact that they might see the Miami Heat again. You're not going to show your cards. You're not going to show the Miami Heat everything you have. You're not going to counter every move they have now and kind of just go all in and empty the kitchen sink to try to beat them, because you didn't have to win that game last night. It would have been nice to win that game. It would have been good to just have to take these last 2 games basically off and say whatever. But As I said, Miami needed this game much more than the Sixers did. And I thought that was not only in the way that Miami played, I thought it was in the way Eric Spoelstra coached. Eric Spoelstra coached that game like a desperate coach who needed to win that game. And I don't think Doc Rivers coached that way. And I don't necessarily blame him, because you might see the Miami Heat in the second round and you don't want to show all your cards.
Right. And as you know, Paul, if the Sixers would have won that game going away last night, the new narrative would have been, well, the playoffs aren't for 10 days. How are they going to keep this momentum? And they're going to have to sit for a whole week. So, again, nothing that happened last night. I know it's frustrating, and we all want to react to the moment. And by the way, I think it is fair to have the opinions like some of our listeners to, hey, Mike, they didn't compete. That's what's disturbing. Okay, they didn't compete last night. Does that mean that's who they are? Are they a team that just doesn't compete night to night?
There's been games where Miami hasn't competed this season. I mean, they just had a hell of a night last night, and they've been playing better basketball, and the Sixers have not. That's just it's such a long season, and I just think we all just get so hyper focused on one game and one thing, or Mike, they won 8 straight games. They didn't even play that well, and they won 8 straight games, and they had guys in and out of the lineup, and they won 8 straight games. So it's not. I don't see it as this one game as this big referendum on who this basketball team is. This team is on the verge of winning more basketball games than anyone in their conference. You don't get that way by being not competitive, by not having heart, by being streaky, or whatever anyone else says. They are about to win more games than anyone in the Eastern Conference. That is not a debatable thing. It doesn't matter how they did it. Doesn't matter who they did it against. There are no style points. They are about to have more wins than anyone in the Eastern Conference. That's it. That's a flat out fact.
It is. And I guess the question off that is, then, do people view them as a legitimate contender, or they're the Atlanta Hawks?
I mean, I think that's silly. To me, I would say this. I think the NBA this year is more open than maybe it's been in, I don't know, a couple decades, or at least a decade, I would say. I think there are probably 7 or 8 teams. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I think 7 or 8 teams could win the NBA championship. I think that many teams are that good. I think any of the 3 teams in the East I could see coming out, whether it's the Sixers, whether it's the Nets, or the Bucks. I think any of those teams could be the team that winds up representing the East. And then out West, both LA teams, and then the Suns and the Jazz are both having great seasons. I mean, you can make a legitimate case for any of those teams to possibly reach the NBA Finals. So to say the Sixers aren't a contender, I think is crazy. I mean, they are a contender. They're going to be right there. Now, with that said, if they wind up playing Miami, and this is like so far down the road, but if they wind up playing Miami in the second round and they lose to Miami, yes, that would be an enormous disappointment. But it would be an enormous disappointment because your expectations are for them to go farther than that. So to say they're not a contender, I think it's just silly.
I would agree. And I say there's only 5 teams that can win a title, and they are and this sounds odd, but it's the Lakers because they have LeBron. It's the Clippers because they have Kawhi. It's Bucks. It's Philadelphia, and it's Brooklyn. Other than that, I don't know that there's a player in the league. Now, one might emerge. Maybe it's Booker. Maybe it's Mitchell. Maybe it's Booker and Paul. But to this point, none of those guys have been good enough to be able to win the title because they have the best player on the best team. So somebody new would be emerging for one of those other teams that I didn't mention to win it all. And by the way, one of the guys who I think has emerged new is Joel Embiid.
Absolutely. And even Joel Embiid is certainly like that. That's to me is why, like, if you're looking at the entire league and you're looking at kind of to your point, you're looking at the best players. I mean, Joel Embiid is arguably the best player in the NBA this season. So you're going to tell me that the team that has the best player in the NBA is not a contender? And a team that has the best player in the NBA, and when he plays, their record with him, and in the record with him and Ben Simmons together, it's dominant. I mean, they have been a dominant basketball team when both of those guys have been in the lineup. And I'm sure if you looked at a lot of the other teams in the NBA, that would match. You talked about LeBron and the Lakers. How have they been faring without LeBron? How are they faring without LeBron and AD? It wasn't going so well, was it? Like, it's the reality that when you're missing these star players, it hurts. And it's not an excuse. It is a reality. And for the Bucks, they've been lucky that Drew Holiday missed some time. And and that's when they struggled, right? When they had their struggles when Drew Holiday was out of the lineup. But they played better basketball when they've had Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday. The Nets, obviously. I mean, when they've had guys shuffling in and out of their lineup, but when they've been right, they've been great. So I think that's the other thing is just, having those great players. I mean, to me, Devin Booker is a guy I think is like criminally underrated. I think he's phenomenal, and I am very anxious to see, to your point, how he looks in the postseason. I think him and Chris Paul, I could see them doing some damage. And it's not just those two. They are a tough-minded defensive team with some physical veteran players. So I think they can make some noise too.
All right, Paul Hudrick inside the Sixers. The Sixers play tonight against the Orlando Magic. And as we know, Paul, a win and they are in. So they still have tonight and then again on Sunday. If they were to stub their toe tonight against this Magic team, who, by the way, has lost 5 in a row, it's kind of hard to see Orlando, who's lost 5 straight, all of a sudden end the season on a 2-game win streak on the road, mind you. So it feels like the Sixers are going to get one of these two here, but are they going to be at full strength tonight? We're on a back-to-back. You're traveling from Miami back to Philadelphia. Is there any anticipation that some guys might not be playing tonight?
I would have to imagine that they're going to go full. I mean, I don't know yet, but I would have to imagine they're going to go close to full strength. I mean, Matisse Thybulle will still be a question mark, I would think, because of that hand. But I would think that starting 5 is good. They want another shot. And listen, I think one of the benefits when you talk about, and Doc Rivers referred to it as an ass whooping last night, and that's what it was. One of the positives of that can be, to everyone's point, yeah, they won 8 straight games, but they didn't play particularly well. Maybe they needed a punch in the mouth. Maybe they needed this. Maybe they needed to get whacked and realize, all right, we got the playoffs are about to hit. We need to get going. And now they realize, hey, we only have 2 games. I know this is an Orlando Magic team that isn't good, but we got to show up at home. We're at home where we're almost unbeatable. We got to show up and we got to just, beat the snot out of the Orlando Magic and close this thing out and then, and regroup next week and figure this out. That's the other thing too, Mike. I think people they're going to have like a week off. And all the teams that aren't in the play-in are going to have a week off. So everyone's going to kind of be in the same place as far as rest and as far as that, maybe those competitive juices not being as up as they would be for those top 6 seeds. Right. And the other teams playing desperate basketball. So that's going to be a factor. That's not nothing. So, but yeah, I would expect that they're going to play, that they're going to go mostly full strength. And if they do, and no Dwight Howard because of the suspension, sure. If they show a pulse tonight, they should beat the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, that's true. There is no Dwight Howard, which means I guess you're going to get Mike Scott in backup center minutes, I would imagine, or maybe they'll get creative and do something different there. But that's the one. So it's tonight at 8:00. Correct? It's at 8:00.
8:00. Yep.
Any reason for that?
Is it national? Maybe is it a shared national game? Perhaps I don't know, but
It's
I prefer
Orlando.
7:00, Mike, because I don't like to be up late. But
Right, exactly. 8:00 tonight, and then it's a 7:00 game on Sunday, and then that is the end of the regular season. Of course, you'll hear both those games on 97.3 ESPN tonight. 8, Sunday at 7. If the Sixers win tonight, they are the 1 seed. If they lose tonight and win on Sunday, they would be the 1 seed. Now, what's the scenario, Paul, that's the most disastrous? They would lose both, and the Nets have to win both.
correct. That is where we are. I believe. I think that's where we're at, where the Nets would have to win both. Sixers have to lose both. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I don't even want to go down that path because if they lose 2 games to the Orlando Magic at home.
Right. But to be fair, if they lose 2 games to Orlando and then they drop from 1 to 2, then I think you can make a legitimate argument that I cannot believe in this team.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge concern. Absolutely. That's if you lose 2 games, this Orlando Magic team is so bad. Not only are they so bad, they're not trying to win games. So, I mean, if you lose both of these, that raises much, much, much bigger question marks than anything that Miami game could possibly raise.
All right. He's Paul Hudrick. Now, let me ask you, it's Hall of Fame weekend. In your time covering the Sixers previous to joining us here, Paul was over at NBC Sports Philadelphia. Were you there for any Kobe Bryant years?
I think I think I was an intern maybe during like his last season. So like it's so vague, the memories of that. But I remember the game after he passed when they played the Warriors, and I covered that game, and that was, whew, it was just such a weird atmosphere. And Joel Embiid hits that fadeaway wearing number 24, and it was just like I'm actually getting like goosebumps thinking about it because it was a tough night, man. It was anyone who is a fan of the game of basketball and watched Kobe Bryant's career. It was a weird, rough night to be there, but at the same time, it's something I'm never going to forget, and it's a pretty awesome memory to have.
Now, I was at the last game that Kobe played in the center, and I remember the traffic was so bad that I missed like the first 4 minutes of the game just trying to get in. And if you remember those first 4 minutes, I mean, was maybe one of the greatest 4 minutes that he ever played.
I do.
Right? I mean, he didn't miss
Right.
anything. He was going bananas, and I got in. The place was electric. I said, "What I miss?" They're like, "You missed the whole show." Kobe was the whole oh my gosh. And he'll go into the Hall of Fame this weekend along with Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and 6 others, I believe, are going in Hall of Fame weekend for the NBA. All right, Paul Hudrick tonight. Who's at this game tonight?
It'll be me. I will be there.
All right, Paul will be there tonight at Paul Hudrick. And of course, you can follow him on Twitter for everything tonight. By the way, it looks like Embiid is probable and Thibault is questionable. That was a Keith Pompey tweet about 2 minutes ago. So there's the latest on that. So it looks like Embiid is probable to play tonight. All right, Paul. Good to see you, man.
You as well, Mike. Talk to you soon, man.
Paul's back on Monday when we know where the Sixers will be. We will not know their opponent for the playoffs on Monday, but we'll be breaking it all down right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. We do not know the Tuesday play-in game times, but we believe that it will be Boston. Now, we say we believe it will be. Boston and Charlotte are currently the 7-8s in the Eastern Conference. Indiana, Washington are the 9-10. If you go to the West, it's L.A. It's a half game behind Portland. Portland lost. L.A. plays tonight. And Golden State would be matched up. And then Memphis, San Antonio. So we got to take a look at the schedule for this play-in tournament. We'll try to get that for you coming up because it's going to be pretty crazy. We'll have the play-in games for you here. Tuesday night is when it begins on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can watch the show live, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. For those of you watching the show live, we appreciate you. I want to check into some of the comments that have been coming in throughout the show. Bruce Roth is watching on YouTube, says, we need Steve Nelson regardless of what he wants. Howie is good at using bonus money to meet his demands. Steve Nelson, regardless of what he wants. Here's the problem. Steve Nelson has 14 teams interested. How intriguing is a dilapidated Eagles secondary up against some of the other 14 teams that are interested? I guess other 13 teams. The Eagles would be one of 14. So here's the problem. You can't just blow him away with what you want to pay him. First off, he's not that good where you just go over and just give him anything he wants. And secondly, there's a lot of teams involved here. So, Bruce, I get your point. Get this guy. It'll make you feel better about where this team is. Are they a outside corner away from being a Super Bowl team? Probably not. But I'll tell you what, you get Steve Nelson in here, and this defense is serviceable. Nick Sirianni is speaking. I am not listening. I can't hear what he's saying. I'm reading some of the quotes, but Jalen says Sirianni is much, much better in interviews now. He's killing it today, much more confident in person. I have not been able to see. I'm just seeing some of the tweets that are coming out about Nick Sirianni. We're going to talk with Andrew DiCecco coming up here in about 15 minutes about it. Sirianni, from what I understand, he has been kind of pressed a little bit about the quarterback situation because there are still reports tying the Eagles to Deshaun Watson. And I said the other day, I don't think you'll see Deshaun Watson play this year for any team, which would mean the Eagles have a year to kind of evaluate Jalen Hurts. And then if they want to do something next year, they have the ammunition to do it. I would imagine there will be some resolve in the Deshaun Watson situation by the start of next season. And then the Eagles, if they were interested still, can use one of their 3 first-round draft choices to try to entice the Houston Texans if they, in fact, still want to make a move. But they don't want to make a move. He wants to get out of there. Now, some of the Nick Sirianni has said that Jalen Hurts has done a good job of learning the offense and that he's been very impressive in reciting the plays. Look, I don't have a concern that they are looking to replace Jalen Hurts. I'm not sitting here saying, hey, who out there can replace Jalen Hurts? I think they're happy with Jalen Hurts. I think they want Jalen Hurts to be the starting quarterback of the team. And I don't think there's anything other than, hey, we are doing due diligence. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think you're going to see a lot of due diligence with experienced quarterbacks. Why? Because they have track record. And if they're available, and I know their track record, I think their track record is better than the potential my guy has. That doesn't mean I think my guy stinks, but I should at least call and find out. People get up in arms about it, but that's just football. That's business. Hey, I got someone that works for me. I like that guy, but can I find a better guy? Can that guy take us to another level? This guy can get us here, and I don't mind being here, but can I get further? That's how business is done. That's how business is won. And that's how teams win. Hey, this guy's good to get us to 10-6. That guy can get us to 12-4. Although now it's 12-5 or 13-4. I don't like that at all. Let's go back to 16 games to make everything feel a lot more comfortable. But at the same time, I think you can support Jalen Hurts and at the same time say, hey, if there's an opportunity, it's like anything. I have a business. I like my business. I've grown my business. I make a lot of money with my business. Somebody calls me. I'm interested in buying your business. I like my business. I make a lot of money with my business. But you know what? I'm going to take the call. I'm going to sit down and see how much money that guy's offering me. It's like when you go to Shark Tank. And sometimes, very rare occasions, the shark might say, I want to buy 100% of your company. You didn't go to Shark Tank to sell your company, but guess what? When the shark makes you the offer, you damn better well listen. especially if the other Sharks are saying, I'm not interested. I don't think you have a product there. But one Shark is saying, hey, I'll pay you $500,000 and I'll take the whole company from you. That might not be what you went there for, but it's what you went home with. And I think the Eagles are in that situation. They didn't go into the offseason with the intention of upgrading their quarterback. That doesn't mean that they don't get an offer or there's not an opportunity out there to change. So don't be surprised if you're going to keep hearing the Eagles are interested in Deshaun Watson. The Eagles are interested in Aaron Rodgers. The Eagles are interested in Russell Wilson. Why? Well, first off, use your noggin. Why would the Eagles be tied to those teams or those quarterbacks? It's not because they don't support their quarterback. It's because they're one of the few teams that has the ammunition to land those players. Not everybody has 3 first-round picks just sitting at their feet. Who does? The Philadelphia Eagles. They also have a general manager who has showed a propensity over the years to pull the trigger on deals. He's a deal maker. He wants to make trades. He has 3 draft picks to make a deal. He likes to make a deal, and he's got a situation at quarterback that is very unresolved. So, of course, the dots and the crossing of the T's are going to land you to Philadelphia. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's their view. That's just us connecting dots. That's just us saying, this guy's better than what I have. Why? Why is he better? Because you've seen those other guys play. You really haven't seen your guy play. We're just all going off of what we think Jalen Hurts might be and what we already know the other guys are. Like, if you told me I have an opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers, I'd have to be an idiot to say, no, I don't want to listen to you offer me Aaron Rodgers. Of course you would want to hear what they have to say. Of course you would. But at the same time, it doesn't mean the Eagles are, man, we don't like Jalen Hurts. We don't really think he's very good. We don't really think that he's the guy for us. So we're going to kick the tires. We're going to keep kicking. No, I think it's more, you have 3 draft picks. You have a GM that likes to wheel and deal. Let's connect the dots. Yeah, the Eagles probably have some interest. As for this rookie minicamp that is going on right now, we'll have more details coming up. Nick Sirianni spoke today about Devonta Smith, and he said, quote, as advertised, he catches everything. That's the big thing. And he said he's really long. He's got long arms, big catch radius. That's the big thing. I think it has gone underreported and not talked about enough, from myself included, that Devonta Smith just flat out doesn't drop passes. He catches everything. What does this team have? What has this team had problems with over the last couple of seasons? The drop. The drops. The drops, the drops, the drops, the drops. Catch the ball. They constantly kept dropping the football. Devonta Smith, don't drop the football. He just doesn't do it. It's not in his DNA. A lot of people chatting. Jalen says the coach definitely won me over today. Says you thinks you will love this presser. You know, I like Sirianni in his last ones. I've liked Sirianni. I loved him in the last one that he did. I thought he stole the show. I was pumped. I tweeted this morning, Sirianni had practice on the field today. It's like Christmas Day. You know, I tweeted out the gif of Elf and the whole crowd going bonkers. I'm on the big Nick Sirianni train. He's the kind of guy that, to me, that can change the atmosphere and the culture. Again, it's not me saying I thought they should have got rid of Peterson. I didn't think he deserved to be fired. But I'm excited about now that they've moved on, I've moved on too. I've moved on with them. So I didn't think Peterson deserved to be fired, but now that he's moved on, it doesn't mean I have to hate the next guy coming in. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. It's the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live. Go to 97.3ESPN.com on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and check us out live stream. And I see a lot of positive stuff, which you don't see a lot on social media in regards to Nick Sirianni. So that's a plus. Devonta Smith catches everything. Great to hear. Something this team needs. Big time something this team needs. For God's sakes, catch the football. But I think one thing that's being under talked about too is how Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor, the first-round pick from last year, could really complement each other. And Smith said it the other day. He said about Reagor that he's an explosive guy, very fast, great receiver. But he said we can complement each other. Just help each other out with the things in our game. There are, he said there may be something I'm doing that he's not doing or something that he's doing that I'm not doing, and we can just help each other out in every way. But they can complement each other, and they can do that because they both play a different role. I think Reagor could be that guy that you can get the ball in a lot of different ways. I think you can certainly get Reagor on jet sweeps, slot stuff, and with Smith's ability to stretch the field. And with Smith's ability to stretch the field, that's what this team has been missing. They have missed a home run hitter with Deshaun Jackson out the last couple of years. The two couple games that Deshaun Jackson played for them, the offense was pretty good, right? When Deshaun Jackson played, this offense was pretty good. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Hey, don't forget my friends over at Trifecta Therapeutics. You know, I've been telling you for some time now about the aches and the pains, and as you get older, they're going to keep coming. They're not going away. Well, if you're experiencing them and you need to find out, man, what can I do about this? How do I get rid of this? You call my friends at Trifecta Therapeutic and get a free discovery session today. Use code ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com. They're centrally located in South Jersey and Glassboro. They got the highest trained and skilled docs in the area, and they can help you get pain-free. So if you're a weekend warrior or a finely tuned athlete, you can start today. They take care of the pros and the Joes. So do what I do. Use my guys at Trifecta Therapeutics, the premier sports rehab and performance center in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. Use code ESPN Radio for your free discovery session at trifectatherapeutics.com. All right, coming up, football at 4. We check in on Eagles rookie camp with Andrew DiCecco coming up next. All right, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco. It's like Christmas Day all over again. The draft was here, and now the players are out performing on the field. Yeah. Now, I know. Don't get too hyped up about it. They're just wearing shorts and helmets, but it's still fun to see them out there. The fruits of your labor. The draft is here and gone, and now your draft class gets an opportunity to get out on the field. Andrew DiCecco, I know that a lot of people want to hear about Devonta Smith, and Nick Sirianni said today, as advertised, and that's music to everyone's ears. But we all hope that Devonta Smith is good. But I think one thing that we really didn't hammer home about him is the fact that this guy catches everything, and that's something that Nick Sirianni kind of reminded us about today.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they drafted him to do. I mean, that's why he was selected where he was, and the Eagles were aggressive to, make sure they secured him. He can do it all. He can line up all over formations, catch the football, catch the ball in traffic, which is a underrated quality, especially for a receiver who weighs just about 170 pounds. I think his toughness is a very underrated facet of his skill set. And I think he's going to become the wide receiver one before, when it's all said and done at the end of August here. And I think he could easily see the highest target share of anyone on the offense.
Yeah, and the other day when he got into town, he had mentioned that he thinks that him and Jalen Reagor can complement each other, with their passing game. He's explosive, very fast. That's what Smith said about Reagor. How do you see those two guys complementing each other with their skill sets?
Yeah, they're totally different players, as you mentioned. Jalen Reagor has the speed, the vertical dimension. I think he's not necessarily going to be a volume type of player, more of a big play, get him the ball in space, whereas I think Devonta Smith's going to be more of a short to intermediate route, someone who's going to command a ton of targets, be a go-to option for Jalen Hurts, be a chain mover, and just a consistent presence in the passing attack. And that's really what that offense needs. He does have a little bit of speed on himself, not to the extent of a Jalen Reagor, of course, but I think he's going to be more of a go-to guy for the season.
Yeah. Now, when you look at Devonta Smith, I mean, some people kind of described him, somewhat like a Deshaun Jackson, but taller. Maybe is that more because of his build, like how small he is weight wise? Is he a home run over the top hitter? Like when you kind of envision Smith as a part of an offense, how do you see him?
I mean, the comparison starts and ends with Deshaun Jackson based on their size. I mean, that's the only thing that you can kind of compare them to. They're vastly different players. Deshaun was more of a specialty type player, a home run threat, big play guy that you could just, stretch a team vertically, take the top off of a defense. Whereas I think Devonta Smith's just going to be more of an every down receiver, can do it all, isn't really limited, despite what his weight may say. He can do it all. Now we have to see him do it at the NFL level. I mean, we've reached the overreaction part of the offseason where, you're gonna hear and read a lot of different things based on rookie minicamp and things like that. We really need to see what happens in training camp once the pads come on and in the preseason before you really have an indication of what they're able to do. But it's nice to hear early positive reviews in the early goings.
Yeah, and I think one of the big takeaways from the press conference today was competition. That's another thing that Nick Sirianni is really trying to stress, is that he is, trying to get competition at all levels of the field, everywhere across the board, from rookie camp all the way through. I think competition is something that you're going to, continue to see. They did that with the running back position. They brought in Jordan Howard. They brought in Kerryon Johnson. So I definitely think that competition is going to be a theme for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that as a core value right off the bat, that was going to be something that he really prided himself on, and under this regime. And if you think back to last season, there was a lot of players that already had their jobs essentially etched in stone. There wasn't a whole lot of competition across the board, as you have seen in other summers. There wasn't really a lot of camp battles you could, pinpoint. And I think that's kind of, handing guys a job. I mean, you want competition brings out the best in everyone. You don't just want to hand somebody a job. you want the best man to win, and you're going to see who's hungry or who wants it more, and that's what training camp has always been about historically. And I think you're kind of going to get back to that, those old camp battles that we remember from those Lehigh days.
That would be fun. I missed those Lehigh days. I missed those Lehigh days. I went to a Lehigh way back, 1998. I was at Lehigh, and they soon after that they kind of ended the Lehigh. What was that, around Chip Kelly when he got here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lehigh was great, man. I mean, that was that old get out of Philadelphia, get in the dorms, and the players. There was a lot more camp fights. It wasn't what it is today. There's a lot more restrictions now, and back then there was 2-a-days, and it was just Andy Reid ran a really tight camp. So those are some of the fond memories that I always have.
Yeah, and I guess it'll be interesting to see what kind of camp Sirianni runs. I mean, only one day out there, and we haven't really got a chance to see or consume a lot of what he said. He did speak a little while ago, and I mean, obviously. We're to see how he's going to run this team and how it's, what his thumbprint is going to look like on this team. But one thing today was obvious. He is not going to talk about the quarterback rumors. He's not taking the bait on that. And they're going to keep that competition thing going with, hey, Jalen's here. We're happy with what he's, but everybody's here, so even with the quarterback position, it seems like they're not really ready to say, he is our clear-cut number one guy, because you're going to hear names, Andrew, right? You're going to hear Deshaun Watson's name. His name keeps kind of trickling in, that the Eagles are still kind of kicking the tires down there. And I wouldn't be surprised if you hear their name attached to an Aaron Rodgers or anybody else. Why? Because they have those 3 draft picks. They're one of the few teams in this league that have the ammunition to get one of these guys.
Yeah, but the later it gets in the summer and the quarterbacks, they fall behind the learning curve as far as learning the playbook and how much they can really contribute in the early goings. Obviously, when you're looking at someone like Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers, that's not going to be a problem. But I mean, it's not an easy position to kind of digest, especially kind of getting, if they're going to be moving cities and over the summer and the season only being a couple months away. But I mean, look, and I've said this countless times, you got to let Jalen Hurts do his thing. Get an extended look at him. You really don't know what you have. You've seen spurts, but you want to see him kind of build off of what you saw last season, build that continuity with his weapons. I mean, we haven't seen Jalen with these new weapons. Let him get accustomed to that first before we're trying to knock this guy down the second string and move turn the page. I don't think that's fair or the right thing to do. And I don't think that's necessarily the direction they're going to go.
No. I had said the other day, Andrew, and it might have been to you, but the fact that Hurts, to me, it's more than his skill set. It's what he brings to the locker room and what he brings to a huddle and what he brings to a team. The team gravitates to him. That is obvious. That doesn't mean, he's not Tim Tebow, where he's got this great ability to lead, but he just didn't have the skill set to play quarterback in this league. He has very good skill sets, but I feel that it's almost his other intangibles that are his best qualities.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's one of the things that stuck out to me right away. His poise, his leadership, and his ability to command the huddle. From a young player with no offseason, no preseason, to kind of get thrown in there against the Saints, who had a good defense last year, and really start to move the offense. And there's a lot of chatter going on. He just blocked out the noise. He went out there and executed what they were asking him to do. And I think as a young player, that was very impressive and encouraging. And when you look at now, he's got a full offseason. He's got a new array of weapons to work with. We have no reason to doubt that he won't put it together until he does it. You know what I mean? Give him a year and see what you have. And he does have these intangibles that it gives, it kind of leads you to believe that he can put it all together. And he has a lot of untapped potential. So it'll be interesting to see if Brian Johnson can get that out of him, and the offense can sort of cater around his skill set now. And they've had time to do that, and we're sort of going to see how that all plays out in the coming months.
Yeah, I know these rookie camps, people always want to hear what's going on. Of course, they don't let you guys really get to see all that much out there. But I guess the other guy, after Smith, which of the other guys do you think has the best chance to make a contribution this year?
Of the draft picks or the receivers?
Of the draft picks.
I mean, you would think it would be Zach McPherson by default, but like I was saying, a corner is a tough position to transition to at the pro level. And I caution the Eagles not to put too much onto his plate because, just because they have a lack of numbers there doesn't necessarily mean you got to overload this kid, which can lead to a confidence issues or just it can stunt his growth. I've seen it happen to countless players, as I'm sure you have. I think that when you look at the draft class, it would make the most sense to me. The most ideal pick would be Milton Williams, who I think can play. They mentioned that he was going to play defensive end, and he's going to kick inside and rush the passer on passing situations. So, and they really need Milton Williams to kind of catch on fast because there's not much behind Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. And I think when you take a player in the third round anyway, you're expecting early returns. And fortunately, I think that he has the ability to not necessarily have to think and do all these things. He just rushed the passer, and that's his strongest skill set. And the rest is going to come. He just needs to kind of take this year and develop. But I think playing as the third defensive tackle, ideally, he can sort of get his footing and next year probably take one of those starting jobs.
Now, do you anticipate that any of the draft picks from last year have a bigger contribution than they did as rookies?
Jalen Reagor. Yeah, Jalen Reagor.
That would be helpful, right?
And they certainly need him to, and he's going to be given every opportunity to do so. And I think that when you look at the support system that the Eagles have brought in, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to have a bigger impact. You have a Kevin Patullo, you have a Nick Sirianni, you have a Brian Johnson, you have Aaron Moorhead, who's now had a second year to see what his strengths and weaknesses are, and just take advantage of what he does well. And there's a lot of things that he does do well. And they really were unimaginative in how they got him the football and how they utilized him last year. And that was to his detriment. And I really don't think that we've seen all that Jalen Reagor has to offer. And I think that you're going to see a vastly different player in 2021.
All right. Over at InsideTheBirds.com, you wrote a piece about the many dimensions of Kerryon Johnson. And I'm interested to see, what, how you think, we talked about them getting him and what it means. Competition is what we really think it means, but what can he add to this offense if he is to make this team?
Yeah. And you said it right there. He needs to make the team first, but on paper, he's about as good as second running back as you can find across the league. Problem is, obviously, he's got the multiple injuries, which really impacts his elusiveness and his burst and his explosiveness that you saw as a rookie. However, what he does still have, he's very, very strong in pass protection. He has a reliable set of hands out of the backfield, and he's going to pound the rock between the tackles. He's 211 pounds, and I think he would be in a perfect world, he'd be an ideal complement to Miles Sanders. And let's not forget, he doesn't even turn 24, I believe, until the end of June. So that's a young running back tandem if all works out. And I really do think, Mike, that his main competition is going to be Jordan Howard. When you look at Jordan Howard's also good in pass protection. Jordan Howard's also a bigger running back, which will probably looking to fill that type of role. And I think Kerryon Johnson really has a much more diverse skill set and can bring another dimension to the offense that it didn't really have. Because when Miles Sanders was out of commission last season, the lack of a dynamic running back severely impacted the offense. And Boston Scott is who he is. He's a decent player in spurts and in a reduced role. But I think he was miscast and thrust into a role that he wasn't ideally suited for. That's not to say he doesn't have a place on this roster, but I think that ideally Kerryon Johnson would serve that number 2 role.
Hey, I know this is up your alley, Andrew DiCecco. The Eagles brought in 7 undrafted rookie free agents. Any of them that grab headlines for you?
Yeah, I personally really like Coyote Awosika, the offensive lineman from Buffalo who played right tackle. Probably going to be a guard at this level. I think he can do everything. He was a draftable player, so how he kind of slipped through the cracks is beyond me. But he's got a great opportunity in Philadelphia to kind of latch on to one of those final spots. It's not going to be easy. Obviously, there's a lot of young linemen in the mix there, but he'll have a shot. Trayvon Grimes, I think he's someone that a lot of people love the name. They like that he's coming from Florida. They like that he's a big body receiver at 6'4", about 220 pounds. Then he can be a red zone guy. But well, let's give the kid a chance to get on the practice field and see what he can do before we're penciling him in as the 5 or 6 receiver on the roster. I've seen it happen too many times in the past that people get enamored with the size and the pedigree and the potential, like the Ifani Momas and the Carlton Agudosis. You got to let them. You got to let them sort of grow and develop on the football field before you can make an assessment like that. And obviously, he has potential, but there's a reason why he went undrafted. Let's not forget Brian Johnson is on the staff now. Was with him in Florida. So, I mean, we'll see if he can get something out of him this summer. But he's a name, and certainly Jamie Newman. I don't know if Jamie Newman's going to be a rosterable player. He has a long way to go before becoming a reliable quarterback in this league. I think he'd be best suited to be a practice squad quarterback while he develops other aspects of his game. But, I mean, there's not a whole lot of competition behind him. I mean, right now I kind of see them going with just Jalen Hurts and Joe Flacco. But we'll see. Maybe Jamie Newman emerges and kind of flashes enough traits where they were a little hesitant to expose him to the waiver wire.
Where'd you have Jamie Newman ranked when he was at Wake Forest before he transferred and then sat out the whole year?
I had him as a draftable player. I saw a lot of flaws in his game still, which is why you kind of really wanted to see him play that season and see if he was able to work some of those things out and have a better assessment. But I mean, I kind of had him as a 6th round pick this year. He's another player that I thought should have been drafted. So that was a good get by the Eagles.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, DiCecco NFL football at 4. Eagles rookie camp continues all weekend long. We'll have more on that throughout the day here. Jeff Kerr will join me tonight at 5:25. We'll talk more Eagles and NFL. Of course, football at 4. We'll do a lot of NFL through the summertime here. And, of course, the Eagles camps, mini camps, all that stuff are on the way. They'll be here before we know it. And Andrew and the Inside the Birds guys, all a part of it here on Football at 4. All right, Andrew, happy hour Friday. What are you drinking?
I think I'm going to go with the no filter, the New England IPA from Thomas Hooker.
I like the fact that he had that ready to go, teed up, ready to answer. He was ready for happy hour Friday, like all of us here on the Sports Bash. He appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet, Mike. Have a good weekend.
And he gave us a good answer, by the way. He had it ready to go. I didn't tee him up for that. He just said, I'm going with the no filter. That's me. I'm going no filter for the rest of the day. I got Sports Bash on the mind, happy hour Friday. All right, this weekend, big names. UFC 262, Ferguson, Chandler, no shortage of action. And DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC, has a heavyweight offer this weekend. 100-1 odds. One fighter walks away with the belt. You walk away with the cash. Just pick the main event fighter you think will win, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give you 100-1 odds on that fighter. It's that simple, guys. $1, select the fighter you think will win, and you win $100. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test, and I'm sure Josh will give you more information on the fights tonight during game night, and he does a good job picking those fights. He's been making you guys out there some money. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code 973. And that's how you turn $1 into $100 when you bet on a main event fighter to win. Place your bet and watch the fists fly this weekend and use my code 973 and turn $1 into $100 on select main card fighters for a limited time only. Now, I wish you could speed me up for this, but I can't do it that fast. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, must be 21 or older, only in New Jersey. Customers only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, it's I should call it a no-filter Friday, but it's happy hour Friday, and it will remain happy hour Friday. Pete Thompson in 40 minutes, Jeff Kerr in 1 hour, and in 20 minutes, Bob Wankel. But on the other side, do you remember? Oh, I got a whole bunch of them today. All right, do you remember includes Bryce Harper, and how about this? Bryce Harper and Nolan Ryan included today. Back with more. All right, here we go on a Friday. Do you remember these events? These are fun. These are good. I got some good ones today for you. And you can continue to be a part of the show on the live stream. Go to 97.3's YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter channels. We will continue to read all some of your comments. You can always text us, 609-403-0973. All right, these are the kind of things that my trusty producer, Josh Henning, likes. So we always like to bring him in for this segment to kind of see if he remembers these. How about this? 1996, New York Yankees pitcher Doc Gooden threw a no-hitter in a win over the Seattle Mariners at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, the revival of Gooden's career. Him and Darryl Strawberry both ended up on the Yankees team and won a World Series.
It's like Dwight Gooden, the ultimate what-if guy.
Oh, my goodness. He is top 5 at least. It's like him, Marcus Dupree, guys like that. Yeah, the football player. I don't know.
Dwight Gooden. Now, Marcus Dupree is way different than Doc Gooden. I mean, Dwight Gooden actually pitched in the majors and was
played the NFL.
Right, but I'm saying he was successful.
He was a superstar.
He was the Rookie of the Year, and then he won the Cy Young Award.
Right.
Marcus Dupree, it wasn't like he was the Rookie of the Year and then the MVP.
True.
Right. Dwight Gooden.
Maybe Bo Jackson's a better example.
Yeah, Dwight Gooden. His rookie season is 17-9 with a 2.60 ERA. He follows it up going 24-4 with a 1.53, and it wasn't like he was terrible after that. 17-6, 15-7, 18-9, and 19-7, 13-7. Then he kind of just started to falter a little bit, and when he was but he was still in his. Remember when he was a rookie, he was 19 years old,
right?
And then he went to the Yankees in '96. He was actually decent that year. I mean, I say decent. He was 11-7, a 5.01 ERA, but never was really close to the same pitcher that he was in his early 20s. He was better in his early 20s than he really was later on. As he matured, he got worse.
Well, it's a shame also because, what happened to him with the substance abuse. And they talked about in that 30 for 30 documentary about how, he didn't rebound as well as Strawberry did. Strawberry, he got over his substance abuse issues and he bounced back and had a solid, good rest of his career. Dwight bounced back and he was just good enough to be a pitcher in baseball, but it was never the same.
Yeah, he was like your classic, like the Phillies right now. Hey, we need a guy to pitch in the number 5 spot in the rotation. You're a veteran. We know you can give us 5 innings.
Right.
Come on over here, right? That's kind of like what Doc Gooden kind of became later on in his career. All right, Let's go to another one here. On this day, May 14th, Mickey Mantle hit his 500th career home run. It made him the first switch hitter ever to reach that milestone. Only 2 others have done it.
I believe one is Mr. Murray.
Eddie Murray actually won.
It was just Murray.
That's it. Only one other has hit 500 as a switch hitter.
Yeah, it'd be Murray then. Yeah, I remember Murray because I remember it being a huge deal when he was with the Orioles at the time. And they were making a big deal about it. Is he going to get there? He's going to be the first guy since Mantle. And
I got to say, I know it's not talked about a lot, but somebody that can hit both sides of the plate, it's pretty fascinating, to be honest.
It's impressive.
It really is. Especially, it's one thing if you can go up there and hit right-handed for power and then left-handed, put the ball in play. But to be a home run hitter, hitting the ball from both sides of the plate, is pretty extraordinary. I don't think people understand how cool that is.
I've always said the hardest thing to do in sports is hit a baseball. So under that premise, being able to hit both sides is even more impressive.
I don't think it's appreciated that much.
No, it's not. And the thing is, it's also kind of a dying breed too.
Yeah, not a lot of switch hitters in the game anymore. 1997, Charlie Ward and P.J. Brown ignite the Knicks Heat fight in the closing minutes of Miami's 15-point win. You remember that?
I do remember this. Those
now, when I said Charlie Ward, did you think I was going Florida State football or Knicks basketball?
I wasn't sure. I was holding out to find out where you went there. But yes, the P.J. Tucker in the Heat versus Charlie Ward in the Knicks. I mean, Pat Riley versus Van Gundy. There was so much bad blood.
Are we going to see stuff like that in this year's playoffs? Knicks are back, Heat's back, Sixers are a very scrappy defensive-minded bunch.
Well, that Thibodeau team plays very good defense. They're going to have to play good defense and make it anywhere in the postseason.
No question. That's what I'm talking about. The fact that
you might see some 95-90 games, that's for sure.
All right, let's get another one. On this day, May 14th, Chris Webber was traded from the Wizards to the Sacramento Kings, and then he got fired last night.
Right.
So what's worse, getting traded to Sacramento or getting fired? I got to be honest. Chris Webber was pretty bad at his job.
I think getting fired is worse because if you lasted 13 years at being as mediocre as he was as a broadcaster,
Mediocre is being kind.
That's pretty bad.
Weber
At
was
least he went
very,
to Sacramento and they were a competitive team.
He was a rough listen, man. And I liked Weber as a player. And it's not that he had, I don't know, he just was not good.
He was Captain Obvious.
Marvin him did not have very good
I am not a fan of dude who's Captain Obvious. I'm sorry. I can't deal with guy who tells me what anybody else could have told me. You played in the NBA at a high level. You played in college basketball at a high level. You got to give me more than that was a bad pass. Like, come on, Chris. Give me more. That's not analysis. That's just somebody. I can sit next to somebody at the bar telling me that.
My buddy would text me all the time, like, "How does this guy have a job? He's so bad." And I'm never one to bang on I don't think the announcer hates my team or anything like that. Weber was tough to listen to. No, you asked me earlier. Who is my favorite of the analysts on TNT?
With Harlan.
I don't even know who some of I know they have Reggie Miller.
They have Reggie Miller, Grant Hill.
See, here's the thing. They have the better studio show. ESPN has the better teams.
But they have Harlan. So
true, but I'm saying I meant the better analysts.
Oh, okay.
When I say teams, they have the better analysts, like Mark Jackson and Van Gundy. I like those two guys together, right?
Okay.
Doris Burke, I enjoy what she brings to the table. Who else do they have over there?
How do you feel about Richard Jefferson when he does the games?
I don't really think I hear a lot of him. Your face is telling me that he's not good.
He's okay.
All right. So you're allowed to say he's not good. He's not listening. And even if he was, Richard Jefferson,
say,
you need to do better.
I would say if Chris Webber is like the bottom group, Richard Jefferson's in the group above that. Like he's not Chris Webber. But there are times that you're looking for something from Richard Jefferson. You can tell Ruocco or whoever's doing the game with him, they're setting him up. They put the ball on the tee and then he misses it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of when Vince Carter does the games. They've been trying to give him some games recently.
He's a much better studio analyst than he is.
Yeah, there are guys who are better studio analysts.
He's one of them. So is Richard Jefferson.
But I think that the ESPN broadcast teams are better than the TNT broadcast teams.
I think it also helps that the people who they pair the color guys with helps. Because when you have guys like Ruocco and Breen and Mark Jones, they also do a great job of understanding how to put those guys in position. I feel like Marv Albert just in his own world sometimes. He's just going. And then whoever's with him, they're just hoping to get a word in edgewise.
All right, on this day, May 14th, do you remember Bryce Harper becomes the youngest player in Nationals/Expos history to hit a home run? He did it at 19 years old. The previous record was the kid, Gary Carter.
I remember when Bryce Harper was on the cover of Sports Illustrated before he got drafted. That's what I remember. Him, that all the hype about him coming out of high school, about how he was going to be the next slugging superstar.
You know what else would have been cool? If Bryce Harper would have gotten drafted and got a chance to play for the Expos instead of just being a part. Bryce Harper is technically an Expo.
Correct. Yes, he's part of that franchise's history.
In some way, shape, or form, he is a part of the Expos history,
yeah,
even though he never played for them.
Yeah, guys like Tim Raines, Larry Walker, all those guys.
All right, here's one for you. Now, these are from the weekend. On Fridays, since it's happy hour, we're going to go into some Saturday, Sunday stuff.
We're going to expand the menu?
Yeah, I mean, we're not on Saturday, Sunday to do.
We're going to take a sampler of some of the other things on the tap?
Yeah, we're getting a flight.
I like that.
A happy hour.
There you go.
You get a little taste of some Saturday, Sunday events. So these are from Saturday, May 12th. They didn't happen on Saturday, just May 12th, or May 15th, I should say. What did I tell you about this week not being my favorite week? 1912, Ty Cobb entered the stands and beat up a fan by the name of Claude Lucker, who had been heckling him during the game. When the players were fighting in the crowd, apparently it was more common during that period. Cobb got suspended for fighting the fan, who only had one hand and two fingers. Now, I can only imagine which two fingers he was giving Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb is the embodiment of why I always say that the Hall of Fame is a history museum and not a morality play, because Ty Cobb is one of these guys who was a scumbag of a human being for a lot of things he did, but he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Why? Because you're telling the history of the game.
Can you imagine a baseball player jumping into the fans and getting into a fist fight. I mean, we saw it with the basketball. That was in the 90s, the Malice at the Palace. But
that was 2000s.
I guess it was. I was graduated from college. Remember, I was on the air the next morning.
I was going to say, I believe you were on the air at that time.
I was on the air the next morning. I remember that day.
That must have been an interesting conversation.
It really was. On this day, May 15th, this is tomorrow, Joe DiMaggio begins his 56-game hitting streak.
Okay, interesting.
I'm sure you weren't there for that.
I was not. Sorry. I missed that one.
Anybody out there listening, remember Joe DiMaggio beginning the streak? Just like how innocuous is that? Like, hey, you got a hit tonight.
Right.
Joe DiMaggio, May 15th, 1941.
That's one of those records that will never be broken. Definitely.
Yeah, that one. And it's been approached a handful of times, but not even close to 50. Like, I think it got to, 49 by Rose?
I think Pete Rose got, 48? I think it was.
Close.
And then Chase Utley, did he get like 42 or something like that?
That's right. Was it Utley or Rollins that was pretty close?
I was Utley who got close, but it was like 42 or 44, and then they ran out of steam.
All right. On this day, 1973, Nolan Ryan pitches the first of his 7 no-hitters.
Oh, only the first.
Yeah.
That was with the Angels.
Hey, back then when you pitched you one time, you're probably like, this is pretty cool. You didn't realize he was going to throw 6 more.
Right. I believe that was with the Angels, too.
99, the Knicks became only the second 8th seed in NBA playoff history to defeat the number 1 seed. They beat the Miami Heat in 5 games. Do you know the other team?
Would that be the Golden State Warriors?
The Golden State Warriors. Okay, so since the Knicks did it.
Oh, since the Knicks
there have been 3 others.
Right. It was the Warriors who were the 8th seed.
They beat the Mavericks.
That was
That was in the second round. No.
That's first round.
That was first round. Sorry.
Yeah. 8 seed to beat 1 seed.
There's 4 of them.
There's 4 of them.
Yes.
Okay,
the Knicks beat the Heat.
Right.
The Warriors beat the Mavericks. There's one that's the most famous of them all, I think, anyway. It was the first one.
Oh, the Nuggets?
The Nuggets beating the Supersonics.
Yes.
That's the one where Dikembe
Mutombo
was on the ground. And then the other one was the Sixers beat the Bulls.
Right. That was when Derrick Rose went down with the injury.
That's right. Oh, there's one other one. The Grizzlies beat the Spurs in 2011.
I don't remember that one at all.
I do. That was the year with Zach Randolph. I think they ended up pushing someone to the limit in the next round, too.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Probably the Lakers.
And then, let's see. Get one more here, too.
Let's squeeze one more in.
Jacob deGrom made his major league debut on this day in 2014.
It's pretty good.
Him and Doc Gooden accomplished something the same day. All right, these are some Sunday ones. Magic Johnson scores 42 points in Game 6 of the finals, clinching the Lakers' title over the Philadelphia 76ers.
Is that the game that he played center, right?
The 20-year-old, he received Finals MVP.
Yeah, that was the game when Kareem couldn't go, and he played center. He took the tip. He did everything in that game.
He scored 42
incredible.
points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists.
Yeah, that's all. He was amazing.
Sammy Sosa becomes the first Cub hitter to connect on multiple home runs in the same inning. No proof if it was a corked bat or not.
Yeah, no proof of anything at this point.
Jason Kidd and Grant Hill were named co-winners of the Rookie of the Year. First time that ever happened.
Wasn't the last.
Allen Iverson scored 52 points against the Raptors in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference semis, joining Michael Jordan as the only 2 players to ever score 50 points or more in 2 games of the same playoff series. He scored 54 in Game 2 of that series.
That series was incredible, too, because him and Vince Carter just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And 2000, that was a great summer, by the way. Iverson, 52, back and forth. Absolutely right. Ben Sheets, do you remember him?
Yes.
By the way, he was the 14th
Brewers
pitcher to strike out at least 18 batters in a 9-inning game.
Yeah, he pitched for the Brewers and for Team USA in the Olympics.
Yes, he did. And all right, we'll do last one here. Will kind of be like a blooper reel. Vin Mazzaro, you know what he's famous for? Do you remember him?
No.
He set a Kansas City record by allowing 14 runs in 1 inning. He threw 77 pitches in 2 1/3, and all 14 runs were earned. His ERA went from 4.50 to 22.74.
Oh, my goodness.
And there you go. That's Do You Remember for Happy Hour Friday. We've got Bob Wankel talking a little Phils with us next.
No, applicable.
Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson's here. It is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN on a Friday edition. Coming up at 5:25, Jeff Kerr will talk a little NFL with us. Sports Bash is brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online, eastcoastroofing.com. All right, it's a Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. Only 1 hour of this miserable week left, Peter. It has not been a happy hour feel to this week. This has been a really, really rough week, but we have said all week, we are doing our best to get through the 4 hours, and it's almost like we're having an outer body experience for the 4 hours.
Now your allergies are bothering you? Is that what I'm hearing?
They have been. I've never experienced anything like it. It has been that bad.
I mean, just look at any vehicle, though. Like when you walk out, you've got that dust on every car, right? You know, it's all over the place. It's everywhere. It's ridiculous.
I never had this problem before. Like I've had minor allergy problems, but this is like I literally, you know, it's like people are talking to me and I can't understand what they're saying. It sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, I know that one.
That is exactly what anything that anybody says to me all week long has been Charlie. So if I have answered you in a way that seems a little uncommon, you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to me.
Well, I don't know about uncommon, but on Tuesday you were unkind. I hope you're a little nicer. You're in a better mood today.
No, don't blame me for your stupidity. That's not fair.
I was not stupid. I just said one dumb name. Jeez. You know, I mean,
Hey, believe me, the text messages that followed showed that the people agreed with me and not with you, Peter. That's all.
Fine. What would you like to discuss today?
You want to talk about Derek Barnett's role on this team?
No. That's I'm sure that'll go up in the pantheon of the Brooke Lopez's and some of my other utterances.
For those of you who didn't listen to Tuesday with Thompson, we were talking about top 3.
Yes, let's bring it up again. Yes.
Well, I mean, people might not have any context of what we're talking about, PT.
Sure. Okay, fine.
Right. So, Peter, we were talking about the KJZ is doing the Market Madness, and they are nominating the top 3 star athletes in each professional city. So we said, which would the 3 from Philadelphia be? Joel Embiid, Bryce Harper, and
that's
who's
an easy one
3?
too. Yeah, who's number 3? Yeah.
And you suggested Derek Barnett.
At one point, I did blurt him out. Yes.
And I said that was the worst answer that I think you could have come up with in this game. And you said I was being mean. No, I was just being obvious. Josh says he doesn't like Chris Webber because he states the obvious during a basketball game. I was just stating the obvious.
First team foul, second first personal foul, second team foul. Yes, we have people that state the obvious in our profession as well. Yes.
All right. Well, that was a shot. Jeez.
Thank you. Only some people know who that is, but
shots fired by the PT, man. Holy moly. 6 shooters out there.
I don't suppose it absolves me that like I was having a discussion online with somebody about Derek Barnett at the time, and that's why he was okay, fine. All right. I'll give up.
Hey, as much as you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher right now, I'm going to do my best to try to keep this that you're not
on the rails.
Yeah, you're not getting out of that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. All right, soldier on.
Yeah. All right, Peter, soldier on. I got a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of people in panic mode today based on the Sixers' loss last night. We haven't talked a lot about this team because they've been kind of in this cruise. I mean, the last couple of Happy Hour Fridays, they've been in the midst of this 8-game win streak. But now they lost a couple games. They got their butts kicked last night down in Miami. And Sixer fans, they're starting to find that panic button. It's not that big red button that you get at Staples, but it's like around that people are trying to push.
I mean, and how much would you subscribe to the theory, too, that not only did it worry some people, myself included, I'd be lying if I didn't say, oh, my goodness, but who's that guy that wears 22 for the Heat again? Didn't he used to wear a Sixers uniform? I mean, if that was a boxing match and it was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, you would have been hearing over and over again, body blow, mighty blow, over and over again until knockout. I mean, Jimmy Butler was just Jimmy Buckets last night and doing everything he could to give a little whooping back. I mean, it was embarrassing is what it was. 106-94. And then you see the news today too, because Dwight Howard got another tee. Okay, thanks for playing. Now you kicked into that automatic, you have to miss a game. It's just, the little caveats of things that add up out of that game. And I understand why people are concerned. They sit there and think to themselves, no way do you want to go up against that Heat, team moving forward, because they just seem to, for whatever reason, they just seem to know how to get under Embiid's skin. They just seem to know how to get under the Sixers' skin. And that's not a series that I'd be looking forward to squaring off.
I would agree. We had McGarry on earlier, and he was saying, fans, we're the ones that like to say, hey, you want to avoid this team. You don't want to play that team. We got to do this so that we don't. He says that NBA, teams, they don't care. They don't care who they get matched up with. Do you agree with that, though? Don't you think some of these teams, there have been times in the past where you're like, hey, they're trying to avoid so-and-so. This case, might not be the case, but I don't know. I think if you're the Sixers, you don't want to play Jimmy Butler. Although Doc Rivers wasn't the coach here when Butler was here. So
that's
maybe
true.
That dynamic is a little different than if Brett Brown was. Brett Brown might be like, I don't want my guys facing Butler. I know he's in their heads.
Right. Or Butler, Butler might have had an agenda to stick it back to the Sixers and Brett Brown too. I mean, listen, for me, body language is a big thing, the verbal communication versus nonverbal communication. I thought, you saw some things last night. I mean, how many times do you see Embiid actually shrug his shoulders or slump them down and try to look toward the ref? Come on, man. Simmons spins away from the basket and chucking stuff. All you need to know about last night's game is that Tobias Harris, of all people, was the guy taking the initiative. At one point I heard Ala Abdenabi say, listen, you can't win in the NBA if you're just going to chuck up jump shots the entire time. And it almost like Tobias Harris had an IFB or an earpiece in. He actually drove the lane a little bit, made a shot, and it was like, oh, there you go. But that was far and few between.
It's funny, though, because look, I get it. I think in a singular game, you could say they didn't have effort. They looked terrible last night. But I can't pigeonhole them from a 72-game season. They still have 2 games left. If they win tonight, they'll be the number 1 seed.
That's all they got to do.
Don't you think, Peter, if they would have won last night and they would have won impressively, we'd be saying, oh, man, now they got to sit and wait till the playoffs, and then who knows if they're going to be able to, it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing.
I get that some people might be overreacting. My biggest thing is that I would have liked them to have won big last night and seen, that's the attitude and that's the playoff type intensity that you're going to see.
Isn't this, though, Peter? I agree. We all want the good feeling entering the playoffs. We don't want that doubt entering our minds, but this is like the guy who says, I need to see the offense get out there in the preseason game and give me a good drive. And that's going to jumpstart your Super Bowl season. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, it just to me, I think there's, I have a lot of.
You might know a guy who would say something like that.
What's that? Oh, yeah. He's an older guy and he hosts the show on Sundays. See how I connected the dots? Yeah, that's pretty easy for me. To me, it just, I get a little worrisome when you see guys take a night off. I mean, literally all they have to do, you said it, is win one more game. And they played a good, good first half the other night in Indiana, right? And then they fell apart and weren't able to close that out. I mean, that was kind of the one oh, geez, if you just could have done that, then you could have started. And then you have that no-win situation of how much do you rest guys and how much do you want some cohesiveness? How much do you run them? But we're not to that yet. Until they win against the Magic at least once, you're not to that point yet. And that's a good problem to have of how much rest are you going to give a guy?
Right. Now, look, if they win tonight, they're still going to play Sunday and most likely, rest. But then they're off, Pete, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They don't even know who their opponent will be until Friday night. That's the way this play-in game is. So even if they won last night, yeah, in our minds, like, okay, if they won last night and clinched and then lost back-to-back games to the Orlando Magic, we might say, well, they're meaningless games. But the last 2 times you would have seen them, they would have lost against a bad Magic team.
Yeah, that's true. And I heard you saying earlier when I was in the car, make no bones about it. The Magic are absolutely trying to tank. So there should be no reason, unless God forbid some apocalyptic event that the Sixers aren't able. I mean, I guess the biggest thing, and, I looked at Pompey's work. I love Keith Pompey. He summed it up in his lead. This was a bad look for the 76ers. Couldn't agree more. That's the thing. Is the season over because they lost that game? No, but it's just that bad feeling. It gives you that uneasy feeling of, wait a second, you're supposed to be the number 1 seed, and you're going up against this Heat team, and nobody showed up. They ghosted the game.
See, now this is a message that came in from Adam Gaskell, who's watching on Facebook. Hey, Gaskell, what's happening? He says you had a chance to send a message, and you had it sent to you instead.
Amen.
I disagree. And this is why, Pete. I'll never forget this. The Sixers played the Heat in Jimmy Butler's first game against the Sixers after he signed. And I think the Sixers beat them by 50 that night. And I'm not
right.
I think they beat them by 50, to which I said, see, Butler, you signed with a team that had no shot to win instead of staying with the team. And how quickly was that message changed as the season went on, that the Heat got the message at the end of the year that we're in the finals and you beat us by 50, but we're in the finals and you got swept in the first round.
I mean, I see both sides of it. I look at it like this too. If you look back, the Heat shot 66% in the opening quarter. They made 50%. Like, aren't the Sixers supposed to be an improved defensive team this year? They weren't last night. Did they want a mint on their pillow? Were they offering them free massages and the welcome, the welcome wagon? Sure. Hey, we're really enjoying Miami and Florida and all the freedom that comes with it. Go wherever you want, guys. This game doesn't mean, sure, have a nice time. It was very therapeutic.
I said this earlier in the show, Peter. I compare this to, look, the Sixers were on South Beach where people like to party. Orlando is where families get together. The Sixers were in Miami to party, and now their family will be home in the Wells Fargo Center to face Orlando.
There you go. And Orlando will be the one more than likely serving it up, and then we won't have that. I couldn't, it was just a bad look, right? And oh my God, Embiid's numbers were brutal.
And somebody mentioned in the chat that, he probably shouldn't have played. I was surprised. I said earlier in the show, I didn't even think he was down there. I didn't even realize they said he wasn't traveling. He didn't travel with the team. He must have gone there on one of those $49 Spirit flights and just went down to Miami.
That's it. I hear if you drive out to the airport, you get a better deal.
Don't tell everybody that.
Oh, sorry.
Me again with that.
Well, nobody's listening. This is just a radio program, right?
Derek Barnett over here telling everybody our secrets.
That's going to be my nickname for life now. I hear you.
Oh, yeah. You are the Derek Barnett. All right. Our buddy Gene Allen was watching the show earlier, and he said, Mike, they didn't compete last night. That's what's disturbing. Now, I would say in response to Gene, and I said this back in the 2 o'clock hour, it was disturbing for that night. But if that's who they are, which I don't think that they're a team that comes out and doesn't compete night to night. They might have not competed last night.
They definitely did not compete last night. I would agree with that.
That would be disturbing. How would I classify last night's game? They didn't compete. But am I going to be saying that as that is who they have become, a team that doesn't compete night to night? I don't think that's accurate. And I said to Gene, I'm shocked that kind of mindset enters his mind from a guy who leads one of the top programs. There are some nights, I'm sure, that they play a team that doesn't have the same pedigree, that he's frustrated his team. Why? Because their kids know we can just roll the basketball out and beat up on this team.
Now, when you're talking compete and you're talking Gene Allen, what side of the coin are you talking? What are Gene Allen's teams known for more than anything?
Oh, defense.
Defense wins championships.
The funny part is when I mentioned defense for the Sixers against Brooklyn, he sides with the offensive team.
Look, I mean, I think that they have the second best defensive rating in the NBA. I think that they've got better. Ben Simmons, of course, potential candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Matisse Thybulle, you see why people did want Matisse Thybulle to get thrown in any packages or any moves like that, and the Sixers are so high on him. The amount of balls that Matisse Thybulle just impacts, gets a finger on or gets a hand on, leads the NBA in steals, 3.8. I mean, it's I think defensively they are a better team. They weren't a better team last night, and the only place maybe where they're weak is that they allow a lot of fast break points. But when you get to the playoffs, Gil, it's not a fast break game. All of a sudden, when you get to the playoffs, what is it? It's a half court game.
Sure is. All right, Pete Thompson. By the way, Michael checks in, says, what's disturbing? That with how great the Sixers are, they get blown out last night. Sadly, that might be a preview of them in the playoffs. We should have got James Harden.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that, Michael Engel. Because, does
funny.
James Harden play any defense? No.
But here's the funny part. The Bucks, who this guy might say, hey, I guess everybody's better than the Sixers are because the Sixers lost last night. The Bucks just lost by 20 to San Antonio the other night.
That's true. On any given night. That's true. It can happen in the association.
Paul Westcott says, you guys are acting like Miami has a bunch of scrubs. They were the Eastern Conference champions. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's suggesting that Miami stinks. It's that the way that the Sixers got basically Rochambeau'd.
Yeah, they got manhandled, and Miami came out with attitude and effort, and the Sixers, it was like, again, to go to the boxing analogy, Miami came out and punched the Sixers in the face, and the Sixers were like, wait, what? They took a long time to wake up, if they ever woke up at all.
Was that in your Derek Barnett impersonation there?
What, waked up?
No, the what?
What? Is that how he talks?
I have no idea. That's the problem. You said he was one of the stars. I've never even seen him say a word before.
I'm going to get me a Derek Barnett autographed picture, and I'm going to frame that behind me for all my shots here on this.
That would be good. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and you can watch this go down right now. Pete's face just down in shame that he mentioned Derek Barnett, the third biggest star in the city of Philadelphia. How many people listening right now think they could pick Derek Barnett out if he was just walking down the street like, hey, there's Derek Barnett. Oh, my God.
Not even me.
Not even you. And guess what? No, you were there, but were you with me? The night he got drafted, there wasn't two people closer to Derek Barnett than me and whoever was with me, the guy from the radio station in Texas.
That's correct.
Where were you that you weren't standing right next to me?
Well, you had finagled your way into the area that was supposed to be restricted, but you had sort of worked your way up close, right? Didn't you get a good shot of Trubisky that year too? And you were kind of, you were right up in front. I was still back in where we were supposed to be. I was back in the press area. I was watching them all come in when they came in back there and stuff.
All right.
My guy, Hassan Reddick. Yeah.
Happy Hour Friday.
Temple Tough, baby.
97.3 ESPN. No, this guy's trying. Now, we were talking earlier about, Chris Webber got fired from TNT. Did you see that?
No. Wow. What did he say?
I don't
think
what
did he do? He did, or according to Josh, he didn't say enough.
Yeah, apparently he had a contractual disagreement. They were trying to go back and forth. He thought he was really good. I think TNT finally said, look,
you're not that good.
Putting you out there because we were signed. You're not that good. And they end up getting rid of him. So this guy, I think, is trying to be funny.
Okay.
Because he said, who is the Aqib Talib of NBA color analyst? And I would love for Aqib Talib. First off, okay. See,
I remember when Aqib Talib was doing all that.
I loved Aqib Talib the day he did the Eagles game. And I just heard him on a podcast. It was hysterical, by the way. He said, man, they barely paid me to do that game. I only got like 10 grand.
10 grand. Think about the normal people out there that would love 10 grand and what they could do with 10 grand.
He said they barely paid him to do the two games. He got 10 grand a game.
Can you see this? I saved there it is. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Top 10.
They asked him on the podcast, what would he like to change, to get better? He said he needs to get rid of the ums and the mans.
The man is number one. Pat P, my man Pat P, uses legs. Kyler Murray, but of course he didn't say Kyler Murray. He said Kyler Murray is doing a great Kyler Murray, right? And then
I love them.
Oh, it's a ball game now, Mike Gill. It's a ball game. That's number 5. I've saved this ever since that game.
Give me more Talib. So who's the Aqib Talib of Colorado? They don't have one. They need to find one. I would love to hear a guy like that calling an NBA game.
Right.
Like Snoop Dogg does the boxing matches.
Hey, when Snoop did, that was worth my $50 to see Snoop. That was great. That might have been better than the boxing.
Oh, any match that
he said something like it was something. It was like his backyard barbecue or something, or barbecue at his uncle's house or something like that.
Any match that Snoop Dogg is actually calling is going to be better than the fight itself.
Yeah.
Him calling it, because any fight he calls is going to be some half-ass YouTube fighter fighting against some other half-ass guy.
Yeah,
so,
there is some of that going on.
Yeah. All right. What else we got going on? What else is on what do you got going down this weekend?
Well, I got teacher training tomorrow, so that's no fun. I'm trying to figure out this schedule, like how they could diss the Eagles like that and not give them a Sunday night game, on NBC.
Yeah, talk about the schedule. You were on Tuesday. The schedule,
right.
Yeah.
The schedule's weird though, and I heard you talking about it. They got the bus trips. From week 10 on, right? After they have the Denver game, then they don't have to get on a plane for the rest of the way there.
Yeah, after week 10, when they play in Denver, that's it. They don't have another plane. They have a couple of bus trips. They go to Washington. They've got twice at MetLife Stadium. I thought the quirks in the schedule were all over the NFC East. Washington plays 5 straight NFC East games. I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. The 5 straight, and you're right. I know you talked about back-to-back at MetLife, the Giants on the 28th and then the Jets on the 5th. And then their bye is so late as well. That's kind of craziness.
Week 14, but here's a little tidbit on the buys for everybody out there. The bye weeks all got pushed back this year. They're starting the buys later due to the 17-week schedule.
All right. So that's what it is. So if you're going to
I'm just saying in general, everybody is moved there. Everybody's at least 1 week back.
Yeah. So,
Peter,
say it again.
Phillies lineup is out. You ready?
Yeah. Hit me with it.
We'll leave with this. McCutchen, Segura, Harper, Real Muto, Hoskins, Bohm. Herrera has moved up in the lineup. Knapp and Nick Maton is your shortstop, and your man, Vince Velasquez.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Vinny Velo. Well, maybe it'll be good, Vinny Velo, tonight. Let's hope.
All right. Pete Thompson, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He is not Derek Barnett's agent.
Yeah, you're going to have to refer to me as Derek Barnett from now on. The artist formerly known as Pete Thompson is now going by Derek Barnett's caddy.
Peter, have a good weekend.
Oh, thank you, RJ, on Twitter. You're going to want to look up his thoughts too, by the way.
Okay, I will.
All right. Talk to you, buddy.
Like August appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, PT is gone, and when we come back, Jeff Kerr is going to talk a little NFL with us. We saw Nick Sirianni today. We saw Devonta Smith today. And how about this? 9 reunion games on the schedule that we're looking forward to. Jeff Kerr has that next. All right, set. Whoa. All right, it's time to end the day, end the week, to end what has been a very rough week in terms of. I was just having a conversation with Robin Stoloff, our health update over there, and she was telling me the same thing about how her allergies have been crazy. I said, I don't know that they've been as bad as mine. I feel like I've had an outer body experience all week long, but it's almost over. So here we go. Josh?
How you doing?
I think I've explained.
You ready?
I am ready. Let me
You turn your camera back on.
my camera was off.
There
over
you go.
There we go. All right. Interesting point here by Mike McGarry. You enjoying that segment?
I enjoyed the back and forth, yes.
A lot of feedback on that, by the way, so far. All right. This is Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City said this.
Right now, I'm not going to say that because the Sixers have been lackluster and haven't played well down the stretch, it means playoff doom. It doesn't bode well, but I just think to teams, they don't think of it like fans do and the media do. I don't think the Sixers put the importance on last night's game that, quite frankly, their fans and the media did.
So do you agree that the organizations don't have a preference of who they want to match up with in the playoffs?
I agree with his point that we look at it differently from the outside in. The fact that, we look at it as, well, this matchup, that matchup. I think teams look at it as, I got to get to a night-to-night basis. It's kind of like how, for you, Mike, you've been coming to work not thinking about every day this week, think about how you get through this day. Because your situation is, I have to get through this day and do X, Y, Z today, tonight, and then I'll get to you tomorrow. I think it's how a lot of these teams, because that is their professional obligation.
See, I think sometimes we've seen it in football, haven't we? Where like teams like, want to lose games or win a game, or you know what I'm saying, to like get a certain matchup.
Sometimes, but I feel like the point is very poignant that, we look at it differently because we're on the outside looking in. When you're inside, it might be a different feel to it.
I have to wonder too. I gotta think though that the guys are in the locker room having the conversations that we are, like, yo, man, we much rather play Charlotte than Miami.
I think they're also having the conversations that they, hey, what'd you watch on TV last night?
I know, but I feel like we act like these guys are like, like what they say is true. Like, oh, I don't listen to the radio. I don't read the newspaper. Like, come on, dude.
I don't believe that.
Right. No. But I also don't I don't know. I don't know that these guys don't have a preference of which team they think is a better matchup for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the concept is interesting. It's an interesting thought.
All right. Well, that's all the thoughts I have for this week.
As team?
I'm just absolutely done. I had a good week. I had fun. We had a lot of great guests this week. If you missed any of them, check out our YouTube channel. Tomorrow morning, Best of the Sports Bash starts off at 9 a.m. Adam Kaplan, Bob Wankel. On Sunday's version, Jake Fisher, Kevin Durso recaps the Flyers season, and Jeff Kerr. So if you missed any of those conversations, and if there's a great conversation that you missed during the week, you can always check out replays of the show, the full videos, or just your favorite interviews. All right, game night's up next. We got McCormick coming up live from the center with an update on the Sixers and the Magic. Big one. Sixers win. They're the number 1 seed. Have a great weekend, everybody.